Hello and welcome to Film Lovers. I'm Sonia Chung. I'll be talking to people who work in the film industry and who are also avid film lovers. Today we'll be doing a special Halloween episode, and I have my friend from one of the other previous episodes, OD Darvish. Hello OD, how are you?
Hello Sonia, I'm fine. How are you?
Good. So this is a special, the Halloween special. So I guess we should start off by doing our wicked laugh. Can you do a funny laugh?
Happy Halloween.
Should I try and do mine? I can't do a silly laugh.
No, give it a go. Come on,
Okay.
I'm sure you
Oh, ha, 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 ha. Or we can do a quick wolf or werewolf impression. Hang on. I'll do one first and then you do one.
You go, because I'm not familiar.
Right, I'll do one.
Do it, I'll see what I can do. Okay.
All right, okay, I'll go first and then you go. Okay. Okay, you okay?
That was good.
Oh, no, yours is better.
Full moon is coming.
Do yours again. That was much better.
Was it? Oh my goodness. Let's do it again.
Okay. Okay, so that's enough of the impression.
Yeah.
All right.
Good thing I've got a day job.
Yeah, me too. All right, so I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll bounce back and forth. So maybe what you can do is you suggest one of your favorites and then we'll talk about that. And then I can suggest one of my favorites and we'll talk about that, and we'll do it that way. So it's fair because I couldn't do that. So why don't you take it away, OD? Go with one of your first favorite Halloween scary films.
I think we spoke about it very briefly last time when I was talking about my early memories of childhood and watching film, because my dad used to allow me to watch any film regardless of the
I think I remember.
class kind of a classification rate. So I have to go hands down. For me, The Exorcist is the most scariest film of all time. And
how old were you when you saw it?
I think about 8 or 9. I can't. But I know. I remember that jumping and having bad dreams and running to sleeping between my dad and my mom and sweating and jumping again middle of the night because I had the demon or whatever monster were chasing me in my nightmare, and I get up and to make sure that I am awake, and then wake my dad up, and my dad explained, he said, I told you it's just a movie and now you're just having a dream about it. But I have that connection. I think one of the raw kind of emotion that you get, that's why it's a big thing, horror film, because it gives you that raw unknown feeling that is kind of innate with the human psyche, fear unknown, fear of survival and darkness and all the other things that become that kind of evolutionary path that we weren't on top of the apex predator when we were back in the wild. So we had to always be conscious about not being a prey and get munched on.
Yeah.
So it's within us. And horror film, they tap into that primal instinct and the fear. And I enjoy it. Me personally, I enjoy watching it and get the scare jump and all the other thing. It makes me alive.
Yeah.
Feel alive. Yeah, it makes me feel alive. Yeah.
You know what? I'm too scared to watch it even now, to be honest. I'm a bit of a wimp, but my mum said that she went to see it in the cinema, and it gave her, it traumatized her for a little bit.
What did she watch in cinema?
She saw The Exorcist in the cinema.
Oh, The Exorcist. Yeah, The Exorcist. Oh, yeah, hands down. When I read about like the 100 most scariest film of all time, etc., is always the top 2.
Oh, really? I can imagine that.
It's always the top 2, and to me, it's not. And it's funny, if there is a program which is made. Can't remember who's this guy who does lots of BBC4. He's a very film avid and.
Oh, Mark Commode.
Exactly.
He's really good. He's a good film critic.
He did a special hour and a half program specifically about The Exorcist. You can go watch it on
Oh,
iPlayer,
okay, I'll watch that.
BBC iPlayer. And it's funny how they took him about 2 years to film it. Yeah, I mean, prepare it, and that's why when I watched that documentary, I realized how much effort is gone that to film. Although it
Yeah.
looks very natural and realistic and almost documentary style,
Mm.
the base being prepared compared to lots of other 70s film. But then it made me think that preparation and that how much is gone to it, and the structure of that filmmaking is not just, it doesn't come give it to your plate from the beginning. The build up is so slow, but it's so interesting with that the suspension is makes you slowly come into the world of this mother and child and a daughter. How
Mm.
you see him, although she's like a famous actress, but she's only a mom, and in her own little world, and how slowly these little things, noises and sound coming from the attic slowly, and then as the story unfolds and you come in, so by the time and you get to the climax and the exorcism has happening, you actually within and you have mentally been prepared, and that's why you buy it, and it becomes so much more realistic. And
Mm.
on top of that, that the whole script was written based on a book, which the book itself was inspired by a real event which has happened to a 9-year-old boy, 11-year-old boy, actually. The whole situation, which they,
Okay.
yeah,
I think
when
I
they
don't
made
know.
it to a script, they made it to a girl a bit younger age. But yeah,
Yeah, because they were very clever with the way they made it, didn't they? Because she must have been, was
who?
she,
Sorry.
how old was the girl, the actress who played the
Yeah, I
girl?
think 8 or 9. I think she was 8 or 9. Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently, I mean, she would have been too young to really understand, but what the director was very good because he treated her basically like a daughter, and he just basically sort of told her like it's all a game. So he'd make ways for it to be fun with her to enjoy, to kind of, does that make sense?
Yeah,
He
yeah,
even,
yeah. Because yeah, said three things they say when as a director you got three things you have to be very careful, or it's harder to work with than any other actors. Is children,
mm,
uh,
animals.
very animals and elderly people.
Oh,
I
really?
Yeah, I was lucky in my dissertation. I wrote a script and made a short film based on it for my final project. I actually worked both with a 4-year-old or 5-year-old boy and
Oh
an
gosh.
elderly lady. But I was lucky because they were both good, and I managed to do my takes and everything, and I was happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it's very every I still watch it. I don't know how many hundreds of times I've seen this movie, but once in a while I go and watch it, and how that uh, tubular bells, the music Paul
Oh, that's
also.
so creepy. Yeah.
No, but it's not creepy. But when you because at the if you watch the film for the first time, that music and that time is very is autumn, is melancholy as a mother getting a bit worried about the child. It's not even it hasn't started because she's walking from the scene that they do a like a university location shooting on her film,
Mm.
uh, and then she start walking home. She tells the driver that, oh, I'm going to walk home. So at that time you're not aware of what's going to happen. It's just a nice new kind of electronic music, nice background. But later, by the end of the film, when that music is later on is played, suddenly this is The Exorcist.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So is that one of your, that's one of your top tens? That's probably your number
Yeah,
one.
it's my top 10. Yeah, I've got the other one, The Omen. I don't know if you're familiar with The Omen.
Oh, I was gonna bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I'll leave that for you. Then you bring that up, please.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. So well, that's a good link from you to me. So yeah, I was gonna go on to the Omen. I was gonna literally suggest that and you brought it up. So the Omen, what can I say about the Omen? It's about a little cute boy. He's supposed to be cute.
Yeah,
And
Damien.
Damien and
Yeah.
his parents can't have children, so they adopt this, what they think is an adorable little boy. and he's a very rich. He's like an ambassador or something, isn't he?
Yeah, ambassador. He's a politician who becomes later
That's
an
it.
ambassador.
And
Yeah.
so they adopt this little kid from Italy, some village in Italy, I think. At some
Yes, yeah, because at the
yeah, something like that. And I can't remember how he finds out. All this weird stuff sort of starts happening when he gets to sort of, I think he's about 5. Is he 5, 6-ish, something like that?
Yeah,
A bit older, maybe. And
Muhammad,
and then so like he's on his there's a bit where they go to the zoo, don't they? And they're in the car, and all the and all
safari, drive-through cars,
that's it, and all the baboons start attacking the car, and the parents are like, "What the hell is going on?" And the kid is like, "Oh, I'm scared." But then he starts attracting all this weird attention. Like there's that, and then there's and also, I mean, obviously, I've got to say the kid is just happens to be the son of Satan, like. And I'm sure at one point all parents think, "Oh my God, this child is driving me insane," but nobody, obviously has to worry about that ever happening. So this kid has the number 666 on his forehead, on his head, obviously covered with his hair. And they later find out that all these people in weird situations start happening. So like the nanny at one of his birthday parties, they have like a big party in the garden, and then all of a sudden the nanny commits suicide. He goes, "Look, Damien, it's all for you."
Yeah, it's all for you. Yeah.
And then she just hangs herself in front of all these kids. So yeah, but that. Do you know what makes it scary? Is that you wouldn't think a child who's so
the innocence of a child, and
that's
also
it.
the way that it's been written is similar to The Exorcist. Is so realistic. It doesn't try to jump scare you from the moment that you show you some kind of
No,
a weird looking monster.
it builds it up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it very slowly goes within the psyche of that the whole Satan and other thing that we believe, and it's all different uh, culture
Yeah.
references. It's a different way they all have it, but as it's funny because the other day I believe you were talking to Adam, if I'm not mistaken, about Suspiria.
I think that might be Tom.
Was it with Tom you were talking about?
Yeah.
Sorry, Tom. I don't know why I said that.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, it was. I do remember talking to Tom very briefly about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because after that when I listened to your dad podcast, I sometimes when you've seen a film and then someone brings it up again and then you go watch it again. I went to watch Suspiria another time again recently. And then it was funny because I managed to take out some lines from the dialogues from Suspiria. I'm just trying to find it and read it for you. Which there is a bit that the American girl is a bit. She understands. I don't know if you've seen a movie. If you've seen it, I don't want to do a.
Yeah. I mean, I know this Hypnosis. I haven't seen it, but I know it's like a big film.
She, at some point, she becomes suspected about. She finds somehow she finds out about the background, the witch covenant, etc.
Okay.
Of what do you call it? Of this dance.
Yeah, because she's studying ballet, isn't she? It's a ballet.
Yeah, the dance company.
Yeah.
She doesn't believe it much, and but there is a scene that she's introduced to another psychologist who scientifically studied what do you call them, this whole phenomenon of witchery and black magic, etc.
Yeah.
And there is a dialogue, the witchcraft, and there is a dialogue happening about witchcraft. I'm just trying because I downloaded it, but now somehow I can't find it.
Oh, that's all right.
No, because I needed it for my own reference. Because I don't know if I told you I started working on a new horror script.
Yeah.
So I'm doing lots of at the moment. I am doing
lots of research,
researching, looking into, because I don't want to. Oh yeah, I found it. Hallelujah.
Okay.
So so and then they got, and then the girl asked, but what do witches do? And this is like, I took it out from the script, and it's very interesting how it talks about it. And it says they are malefic, negative, and destructive.
Yeah.
Their knowledge of the art of the occult gives them tremendous power. They can change the course of events and people's lives through harm. And then it says, you don't believe them? And he goes, this old man, he says their goal is to accumulate great personal wealth. It can be achieved in injury and killing other. They can cause suffering and sickness, etc., etc. But it's the funny bit of it. It says, let me get to it, because it refers to something very special. It says, so it gets to it talks as, this is the Mistress of Magic. It means that, and it says this is it exists all around the world, and it's always recognized, and it exists in all different kind of culture and natural phenomenon, and it's in that collective psyche that, if you look at it, we got it in all different cultures around the world. If it's Judaism or Catholicism or Islam, and all of them, if you look at it, all one way or the other, this Satan somehow.
Well, like in isn't it in Arabic culture? It's the jinn, or
exactly.
Jinn,
yeah.
So they all have their own interpretation, but it's all kind of
it
all means to sort of, they all come from the same source, sort of. No, it is really interesting. But I think with the Omen, it's just like you think, how can this sweet little boy be so awful and cause so much destruction? And I think the scariest bit is the nun that turns up to suddenly like nanny him, and she's basically one of the disciples of Satan. It's just things like that. But apparently it was one of those films where, like, you always hear rumors that, like, on horror films, that actually it was cursed. And I think The Exorcist might have been a bit like that as well, where you hear about, like, so-and-so died and then so-and-so died in real life.
There are plenty of those news about, rumor about it. One of the production, I don't know what's crew or the producer, the producing team or someone, I can't remember. They had an accident. There is a town somewhere in the Netherlands. They had there's another documentary is made about the Omen. And that documentary covers this, but that they had I think one of the producer or co-producer had an accident.
There was one that had a car accident.
And that is funny, because where they found the wreckage of the car and the signage of the road, it was 66 miles to a name of some like a Dutch village. That name was also some kind of if you translate it in English, some kind of a demonic translation, and it was very weird. But I remember vaguely I watched that in that documentary.
So I would say The Omen is one of the scariest ones, just because. But do you know what I think? Just because of that kid, and you just think, how can this sweet little kid just? And then at the end, the dad, because the dad tried. Oh no, I can't. Well, probably everyone's seen it, but don't watch it if I'm about to say what happens.
Spoiler alert.
So spoiler alert. So the dad basically finds out, because by then his wife has been killed or dies, and then he finds out somehow that his son is obviously the son of Satan, and he needs to kill him. And then by the time he tries to kill him, these people come in and they basically shoot at him, and he dies. So
it's in London, that scene.
That's it. So you just so the end shot is at his funeral, and there's there's all these people obviously at the politician's funeral, and then you see a shot of this couple with a boy, and the boy just happens to be Damien. And the boy turns around to the camera, and that very creepy shot of the last scene when he's just waving at the camera, like hello, I'm still here, kind of thing.
Looking, breaking the fourth wall and looking at you.
Yeah, it's so eerie. Oh, it's just horrible. But do you know what? I do wonder, after that film, do you think there were a lot of parents that called their kids Damien?
But to be honest, as parents, they think that all children are devil's children, especially if they're the naughty one.
I know. Do you know what's funny? I mean, we all kind of joke at some point or another, especially like if you're a teacher or you teach something like me, swimming. We all kind of joke, but we know it's not real, obviously. But we all think, oh God, this boy must have 666 on his head, and it's just kind of, it's not real, obviously, and you're just kind of referring because he's so naughty. But clearly he's not the son of Satan. But yeah, it's like you said, it's like The Exorcist. It's more scary because it's happening to a child, and a child doesn't have any concept of the world around it, moral situations. You know what I mean? Their brain is basically like
innocence you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, and their brain is basically like a sponge. It soaks everything up as they go along. So they don't know how to compare it to. So it's just scary. Whereas with an adult, you kind of think, but adults by then should be fully mature in their brains and know exactly what's what. So I mean, it's obviously scary if it happens to an adult, but it's even more scary if it happens to, like you said, a very innocent little child, and that's what makes it creepy than really scary. So yeah, definitely the Omen. But I remember a part of that scene in the park where he meets up with the priest or the vicar was shot very close to where I lived once as a kid.
Is it near? Should be this south is, I think, is it somewhere near because from across the river you can see the Clapham. Is it Clapham? Not Clapham.
Yeah, well,
sorry.
Because I lived in Fulham when I was a kid, and
it
was
it's by the river there. Yeah, you're right. Down.
Yeah. And that park is where we used to always go as kids with my mum and friends and stuff, and it's called Bishop's Park. And then I searched it up on the internet to see what the park was in that film, and it is Bishop's Park. So yeah, it would have been by the Thames River somewhere. So
the north side, because the opposite side you can see the Clapham.
That's it. Yeah.
Clapton Common.
Clapton, yeah.
But that's the other south of the river.
Yes. So so that would have been there. But I think, I'm not sure where they shot the majority of that film. I'm guessing it must have been in England somewhere. Probably.
Yeah. Some of them is they got like in Italy a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just what I was gonna tell. What that I like about these both approaches. They don't rush into something. They slowly build up that
tension,
suspense, and give you a better, subliminally they give you all those messages, and then irregularity and abnormality about what is happening to make you go on the journey with the protagonist. That because the first thing happens, you're gonna say, oh, it can be a coincidence, is a child, or stuff that they in a dialogue, and slowly but surely, as it builds up, and then that's by the end of the film with the character, because you've gone on the same journey, you get gradually with the same at the same pace, and you become to the same conclusion by the end, and that's what it makes for me interesting. The build up to a nice build up suspense is slowly feeding the information, and then say, ta-da, this is it, is a Satan, or this is it, or
you know what, one of the scariest bits, like you explained, with the sort of building up the tension, is when they go to church and it's his first trip to the church, and they're all dressed up to go to the church. The parents in this nice car with the son, and the car's getting closer and closer to the church with the crucifix sign, and he just starts flipping out, and his arms are, and he's screaming and he's shouting, and they go, "What's wrong with Damien? What's wrong? He's not well." They think he's sick or something. And he just, that bit is just so scary, because you're just like, it's just this nice family outing to the, to this church on Sundays, and this boy's having a massive
tantrum, and they started scratching the mom's face. But it's a good, they up to the point that the father, because is supposed to be and it's funny that how these different characters are also although they're like a main character, they have their own role within the film, but also metaphorically they carry a kind of another responsibility. If you look at in all horror film, that there is always some you see like the mother is being emotionally involved and worried, but you always get the other side that more father, they've been more rational and
oh really? I would have said it was the other way around, because I would have thought, like I was going to say as you were talking and saying that I would have thought she was the one that was more in touch with her child's needs and wants, and he seems a little bit, I mean, to me he comes across as a bit dismissive.
I think she was more, because she was more involved and she was more emotionally involved.
Yeah.
So that's the carrier of that. Okay. But then she was also the one, because she was more emotionally involved and vulnerable, she was the one actually first freaked out. And she was the one that raised this case. And then, but you get the other side, which is the dad is more like,
logical.
Logical, and say, don't, let's not get to the conclusion. But up to the point that they went on the journey, that then he, the wife ended up in the hospital, and he went to Italy, actually, where Damien was born. And then
and he doesn't know at this point that his wife's in hospital, does she?
Yeah, no, he doesn't. You're right, because he knows when he get the call, or he's already in Italy. Something that he gets a call when the wife is already in hospital, but he's far away in Italy, trying to go, because they told there's only survival from that hospital is one of the fathers that is half Bern or something, and he lives in the monastery. Yeah, so from that point onwards, that we go on the same journey, because we, the audience, the one with more logic, now with the father on the same journey, after that we are convinced, okay, now you see, it makes all sense now, that this is not their child. The child was murdered and he was replaced, and it was all because they were almost like a cuckoo. They put that child in that right nest because they have access to political influence and gonna continue to become, which is then in Damien. The second one is the Omen to Damien, which is sent to this. I don't know if you've seen it, because they come.
No, I never saw the second one.
Yeah, you got Damien 2. You got the Omen, Damien, and then you got Omen 3, which is Sam Neill is the grown up.
Oh, so he's in a sequel, is he?
He's the third one, actually.
The he's in the third one.
Teenage boy.
That's it. That's the teenage Damien.
He goes to army school as a cadet. So the Omen, the original one, the Omen, was released on 6th of June, 1966.
Okay.
But there were another sequel, and a third one came out.
That's it.
So it was the second one, Damien, called because Damien, now grown up, is like a teenager, goes to the army cadet, being taken as a the uncle, who's a very rich uncle, but he's going to the CEO of a multinational corporation. And the third one is when he's grown up and he's become a politician himself. He becomes politician. I think he become an ambassador of the United Kingdom.
My dear, how many politicians do you think would probably have the number 666 on there?
So and he's supposing that the final kind of the third one is apparently going to become president and all that. But I'm not going to do a spoiler. But yeah, so it's three of these. But the original, The Omen, is like the best one.
Yeah. I can imagine. They obviously tried to make a franchise out of it, and I can imagine it probably didn't do very well as it went on.
It wasn't that bad, to be honest with you, and you will watch it and it makes sense because the story continues and you follow Damien becoming teenager,
adolescence,
and adult. But if you want to give him rating, it would be The Omen and then Damien and the third.
Okay, all right. So let's go on to one of yours now. We talked about The Omen enough, I think. So let's go on to one of your choices.
To be honest, recently, that's the thing. Horror and comedy has become, because it's one of the most because they sell easy. Lots of producer and production company, and it's easy to cheap to make. So there are lots of them. So there are not many horror film that they come out, and I'm a big fan. But there are a few recently I watched. Very, very recent one it's an Italian one. It's called A Classic Horror Story.
Okay, tell us about that.
Yeah, that's on Netflix, and I really enjoyed it because it has a good twist in it. I really recommend to watch it. Very well, the cinematography and whole, the language thing is about horror. I want to bring up because of this movie, A Classic Horror Story. As we spoke in previous podcast, film language, and if you understand the film language and a specific any genre, and as Alfred Hitchcock always followed being a formalist. If you follow that to the specific genre, you always get, at least cinematically, you get a good look of it. And if you're lucky enough to have a decent enough story, I think that's a very, in my opinion, best combination for a successful film.
Is it quite a recent film then?
Yeah, I came across it on Netflix, and to be honest with you, I wasn't sure because there are lots of film on Netflix, and I cross-reference it with IMDb to see the rating and then watch it.
Okay.
So and horror films are, if they get 5.5, usually horrors get between 5.5 to 6.1 or 2.
Okay.
So if you get anything around 6 point rating, is quite good for a horror genre.
Yeah.
They very rarely get above that. Which I'll have another one, which if we get chance, I'll talk about the other one. Okay. Hereditary. That's another film. Okay. But yeah, so a classic horror story. I watched about 10 minutes of it, and I got hooked because of the whole, as I said, cinematography. Very interesting, and also the story grabs me and took me all the way. And at the end, the twist was interesting as well. So I really recommend it if you want to watch it. A classic horror story. Okay. And it's an Italian production film, yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, I've got to give that a go. Definitely.
2021, early 2021 was released.
Oh, okay, so it is very recent.
Very recent, yeah.
Yeah. So anything else you want to say about that, or should we go on to one of mine?
I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it, because
okay, I see.
I can put a little bit background to it, because
go on then, give it a quick background.
Tom, I'm not going to get it mistake, because Tom, okay, I think is into horror film as well. You talked about Suspiria together, and
yeah, briefly.
And so whole Italian horror film is, the same way that British cinema has Hammer horror. Yeah. The Italian have their own very long history for the last 4 or 5 decades.
They're very graphic, the Italian horror films, aren't they? Like, he was telling me, I mean, I remember seeing this countdown, Bravo Scariest Countdowns, and a clip was what was it? Where these people go to cinema to watch a film about zombies, and then actually the cinema has been invaded by zombies, and they come out from the screen. Is that Demons, or I can't remember?
I don't know.
No, I can't remember. But
I watch so much films, but yeah, you were saying, sorry.
Yeah, so no, they're very they're really, really graphic, like, and you see the bits of flesh being ripped off, and the colours are just so over the top, like the blood, and it's like spurting out everywhere. It's just like, yeah. But for sure, I can understand why the Italian horror genre is so big with Western audiences. Definitely.
Yeah, so definitely, and as I said, I recommend it, and it's got a good twist at the end, a classic horror story. So,
Okay.
well made. The story has the capacity to carry you through as the cinematography, and yeah, it's very interesting. And as I said, you know it because you do some writing as well.
Yeah.
All these things that they come on top, cinematography, mise en scène, all the other thing, unless there is no good foundation, a good story, the rest it will be, it almost makes no sense.
Sure.
So the story is important as well. So the story is fine. So I recommend to watch it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So you don't want to give it away.
No, I don't want it because it's very brand new. But
Okay.
there's another one recently I watched and I liked it the whole because it's horror film. You have to create that atmosphere to become. If you want to scare people, depending on what type of genre you go, because you got subgenre in horror.
Yeah.
You can gore and all those. Nature takes over, phobia, etc. But me personally, I am very into more psychological horror.
I was gonna say I'm the same.
Mm.
I find psychological horror more disturbing than actual. I don't see the point in going to a horror film just for the sake of having a really bad story and just showing lots of blood and gore. It's just a waste of time. Whereas I find that something that's more psychological is a lot more traumatizing in a way, but it stays with you. To
Exactly, that's
do you
the
know what I
word. It
mean?
stays with you. Exactly.
Yeah. So for sure, I think psychological, and that's funny that you say that because I'm the same. I think psychological horror is a lot more intelligent, and I
Yeah, and
quite
also I
like
think it's the
intelligent horror.
adult thing as well. The older you become, depending, if you're trying to make kids scares different type of a scary horror for children, then of course, so the target audience is established how and you should approach the story and how to
Yeah,
sell it to the audience. And
sure.
I think, but as I said, because I was exposed to too much horror film, adult ones from early age. For me, watching like Gremlins and stuff like that when it came out, or anything like that, I wasn't really bothered even about it feeling any.
Yeah,
Uh, is it scary but yeah. So I like that, and I think that's takes much more craft as a storyteller and
sure.
writer
No, I agree completely.
to write something that stays with the person, and also it's a Skeleton Key. I don't know if you've seen the movie Skeleton Key.
No.
It came out in 2005 with
Okay.
Kate Hudson in it.
Oh, I think I heard of it, but I never saw it. No.
Yeah, that's another. It gets. I think it's got 5.6 or 6 point rating. But what I liked about it is how is as part of because the short version story is that she is a social carer and she
Yeah.
likes helping people, and she works in a old people homes, and she takes care of the people who are at the final stages of their life,
Mhm.
either because of old age or terminal cancer, etc. But then she um, leaves where she works because there's too much bureaucracy and they don't really take care of people because they deal with them as job for very
Mm.
small personal. So she ended up going applying for an ad to become carer,
Terror.
living
Yeah.
carer for an elderly man who had a stroke.
Okay.
But throughout the situation, somewhere deep in Louisiana swamp, deep south, and remember that deep south is the biggest. Therefore, is significant to this story and to the horror story and to black magic and voodoo within American
Culture.
social psyche and
Okay.
culture, because although when the black people were brought to America as slaves in
Mhm.
Virginia and then spread around throughout South and Deep South, New Orleans, before whole independence, was French owned part of America.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And French, funny enough, they allowed African slaves to keep their culture.
Well, because I remember Deep South was very much against, because that's what the Civil War was about, wasn't it? It was basically the Civil War was like the.
So Civil War is the next chapter in the American history.
Oh, okay. But basically that was the South fighting against the wishes to abort the
abolition of
slavery. Yeah. And it was very big in the South, very, very big. I mean, you hear awful stories about it, especially New Orleans, with the cotton fields and how those poor people were basically working their fingers to the bones and awful treatment, by these.
Yeah. So what you're referring to exactly, Civil War was the next chapter in American history.
Oh, okay,
if you go one kind of chapter back, I'm talking about 50 to 100 years before that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
America is still, it is before America, before America still was the colony between French and English majority, a little bit for Spanish, but Spanish were more toward the Central and South America. So America, before becoming America, it was territory of the crown, English crown, and then French.
The French, yeah.
So, and then Louisiana and Deep South, New Orleans, even New Orleans, the architecture and everything, and the cuisine and everything is a fusion between African and French. So French, the difference between the French owned colony part of America was that French allowed slaves to keep their tradition, i.e., whatever they wanted to have their own food, their religion. They even allowed them to practice their religion. And voodoo, as you hear it now, especially the American version, is started in New Orleans and Deep South.
Oh, I see.
A mixture of superstition of African tribal approach of Western African to black magic, and also mixture with some Christianity, and become what you hear as voodoo. Everyone talk about, but voodoo in reality is a religious. There is something called hoodoo, which is exactly originated from Deep South and New Orleans, and hoodoo is the negative side of the curse. And
so you got the positive side, which is more like the white witchcraft,
more religious, religious side of it, and then celebrate, and but the hoodoo is actually a dark side and the black magic.
Oh, I see. I get you. Yes, I understand.
So this skeleton key. So Kate Hudson ended up working in a house in the middle of nowhere swamp of New Orleans, and this elderly couple, which is the old guys have a stroke, he can't even talk, and then this old elderly lady. But it's funny because then throughout the film, I don't want to give too much away, but then you realize this elderly couple, they're not who they are. But then the whole black magic and the voodoo, hoodoo has to work. One of them is a priest, and one of them was a priestess. How it has to work is that the people who it only affect and people believe in it.
Okay.
And the story of it is how Kate Hudson been living in there and don't believe in religious, this type of thing, this not nice naive girl who just want to be helping people, then somehow throughout the journey start believing these things, and at the end she becomes the victim, because when she challenges I don't want to again give too much away, but
yes.
The other character, the elderly lady, she turns around and says, well, now it works because you believe in it. And it does. So that's again another, what was for me was a good example, because it takes you as an audience on a journey, how by the end of the movie it become believable. So when you see the climax, it doesn't bother you. You understand why it happened, because you went through their journey, and with the protagonist, you believe in those psychology of black voodoo and black magic and hoodoo and all those priestesses and chanting, etc. So that's something I recommend people watch if they want to have a look into a black magic and voodoo and a kind of a psychological thriller.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's worth watching. It sounds like. I thought of one of my favorite ones is Seven.
Oh, the movie set with David Fincher.
David Fincher's Seven, yeah. I think that was his first feature film, wasn't it?
Oh, I can't remember. Was that one or Alien 3? I think he made
Oh, possibly you're right. Yes, it would have been the other. Yes, I think you're right.
But it was his best first film that everyone knows of him. And
yeah,
to be honest,
do you know what? Seven is so. It's like you said. I just find Seven's always stayed with me because it's like you said. It's more psychological, and it's the fact that do you know what makes it so scary? It's the fact that this serial killer is so clever and so patient. He's so patient, isn't he? Because he's trying to fulfill all the 7 sins and kill people, but he waits for the appropriate person and the appropriate time. And so obviously, the young cop and the old cop who's about to retire, Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, it starts off with basically this really fat, obese guy basically dead at a table, and I think he's been chained to the table or the chairs, and he's basically been fed to death. So and then he's gone out, the serial killer's gone out and bought more food and fed him more spaghetti. So he's basically this dead corpse with his head in a bowl, and it's just so awful. But there's so many horrible deaths in that film, but I think the worst one had to be Sloth. Well, I don't know, which one did you think? Sloth was the skeleton, and you think it's dead in the bed. It's been.
Oh, it was that one or the other one, the prostitute?
No, the prostitute was Lust.
I know, but was Lust to me that was more horrible because.
Oh, that was quite vile. Yeah. What was it?
He forced the guy to wear that like a very.
Oh, and she had to. Yeah, and he had to. Yeah, and he had to have sex with her and kill her, basically.
Oh, that was that scene that he's trying to say that he forced me to do it and put the
he's
gun
traumatized.
in my mouth.
Yes, I remember now.
Black and crying and shaking.
He's absolutely traumatized, isn't it? And you think so. I forgot about that bit. Yes, I think I agree with you now. Yes.
No, the reason I brought that up, Sonia, because you're an actress, and I remember when I made my feature film, there was a small role. Quite a few people came for it, but they were saying, "Oh, it's too small." The people who came for auditioning, and I explained these things, and this is my idea, and I tell everyone, all actors, I think it's not about if you have a monologue, okay, as in any film, that means your character is important enough that you get the monologue time in the story, okay.
Yeah.
And then to me is about each sequence. The breakdown for acting, it becomes each sequence, especially if is one or more characters in one scene. Then that sequence, regardless of the rest of the story, it becomes the battle between those 2 or 3 actors in that sequence to make that scene or sequence to belong to them.
Yeah, and also,
regardless if it's after that's only one scene they have or they got longer, and that scene that he's been interviewed to try to is being traumatized and they're trying to ask him, and he tried to explain what happened, and he says, "Oh, he put the gun in my mouth and he took it," and he's I think he made that scene for himself, because regardless of the film was a great and you had big name in that film, but don't forget that performance.
No, exactly. I was going to say you're absolutely right. You don't. I mean, you think there are many examples of films where you have one person who's in it for maybe 5 minutes, and they've stolen the entire film from the big stars. Do you know what I mean? Or so it's or supporting actors that have had a minor role in comparison to the protagonist, and the thing that everyone remembers isn't the main actor, the leading man, or the protagonist. It's basically the guy on the side. So there's many examples of that. That means actually sometimes it's better to be the smaller part because that's the part that grabs all the attention. I mean, you'd have to be a very good actor, obviously, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You don't.
yeah,
It does.
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's not. It's not quantity. It's quality.
Exactly.
So you're
And
absolutely right. Yeah, he does still that. Yes, I forgot about that bit for some reason. I don't know why. But yes, I think that one's the worst one.
that he's sweating, he's shaking,
Yeah,
he's remembering as he's not just saying those lines.
he's reliving it again, isn't he? He's having
exactly, and he's shivering, and you're an actor, so you are an actress. As an actress, it's harder when you want to cry or have that type of a emotional burst coming out and saying the lines at the same time. It's a very hard thing to do because you have to get it so balanced right that you don't sound funny when you say those things.
no.
And also you are expressing that emotion, that those breathlessness, and he doesn't know he can't, gasp for breath.
Breathe,
and so it's the acting like that is makes it that, yeah. So to me, that scene for him was something that it was as good as the rest of the film. I know the Seven itself is a very great film.
Yeah. So you think that was the ghastliest one? Do you? Yes, I think you're right. To be honest,
only because when he talked about it, and then you get the flashback to the picture of the place that they make that sex toy.
Yeah. Oh yes, they go interview the guy that makes
Polaroid.
it. Yeah.
So, and the dude is English. So because the English accent, you pick up the London accent. They take my Polaroid, and then when
it just comes back to me. Oh yeah, it's horrible.
And when he talks about it, that he was forced and put that thing on him, and then he started screaming, and they that what has happened there was a butcher. And again, it's funny because that's the only person you don't see. One of the only.
Yes, you don't see her, do you?
Yeah. So to me, not only because it leaves you to your imagination, but with that narration that you get, that he talks about it, how forced to do it. I think for me that was the master of suspense, that Alfred Hitchcock approach to the thing, to show you what he was wearing, show his reaction, and he tell you what happened. I'll let the rest you see what happened to that poor woman.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, it's up to them to imagine it for themselves. Even I mean, there's been lots of roles like that where we never actually see the person, but we hear someone's description of the person. So do you know what I mean? So it's up to the audience to kind of think, to sort of put together this image of this person everyone's describing, or there's many cases of that. But yeah, for sure, yeah, you're absolutely right, because that's the only one of the 7 murders that never gets seen, whereas you see all the other ones. You see gluttony is the first one. That's the guy that's being fed to death. And then the second one, what was the second one?
Gluttony, is it
was it the lawyer? It was a lawyer, wasn't it?
You got gluttony. The lawyer was second or third one. You're right. Maybe it was the second one, because then they pick up the.
I think it was the lawyer was second, but I can't remember what sin that was. The third one was the woman that was.
So greed. The lawyer was greed.
Oh, that was it. Yes, of course it was. Yes, you're right.
Because of the money, and then it was the. Up to that point, they weren't still sure that he's the serial killer, even though Morgan Freeman said, "Oh, it is." And
you don't see him
behind the fridge in the the first scene, the murder scene, that moved around. He found a splinter on the floor, and he realized, the fridge has been moved, and that's how he said, "Listen, he's giving us a message." And as from there, he said, he says gluttony, and then you get
that's it, yeah. And then they piece together that there'll be 6 more of them.
5 more, because that's a good scene of. Actually, they teach that in lots of film school, that little scene that there he tells Brad Pitt and his captain about, oh, this is 5 more to come.
Yeah.
So that look in
Well,
that
it's 6, isn't it? Because that's the first one. There's 7.
No, but he says this is 5 more to come, because after the greed.
Oh, I
they
see. I
find
see.
out,
Oh, yeah,
and he
yeah.
theorized that it's gonna be 5 more because
Yes,
it's based
yes.
on 7 deadly scenes. Yeah.
Yeah. And they refer to what was the books they refer to? Dante's
Inferno, the not Divine Comedy.
something like that, isn't it? Because he's
It is
reading that.
Divine Comedy. Yeah, it is Divine Comedy.
Yes,
In
because the
Divine
serial
Comedy,
killer's quoting it and things, isn't it?
they
I mean,
refer to Inferno, Dante's Inferno. Dante's Inferno. Yeah.
is that to do with hell? I'd imagine.
So yeah, Dante was, if I'm not mistaken, an Italian poet, and he was one of the people that did, in Divine Comedy with his poetry, he talked about the different 7 layer of heaven, hell, and how the people go. Yeah, so that, and then he realized, oh, the person who's doing it, this serial killer, must be an educated person.
Yeah, well, he's super clever, which makes it even more scarier.
Yeah, and then he said, oh, let's go look at the
libraries.
Yeah, record
What
who's
books he's
taking
taken
certain
out.
books
Yeah.
out, and it was a very, kind of a best way to continue their investigation.
Yeah, yeah. And then they find his name, and it pops up. So we were saying, because we had to go to the toilet and you needed to go get some coffee.
Yes.
We had a quick break, so I stopped for a little bit. So we were talking about 7, and we are saying how we find out that the killer is obviously a very well-educated man who's referring to books and taunting the police with these sort of clues, isn't he? He's playing with them, isn't he? Because he's like leaving little clues and little quotes from Dante's Dante's Inferno or Divine Comedy.
Dante's Inferno. Yeah, and you got the Divine Comedy. So Dante's famous for Divine Comedy, but he's also Dante's Inferno. Exactly.
Okay.
Italian poet that he described hell. So when it comes to like religious text, Dante is coming up, and the other one is Milton as well.
That's
John
it.
Milton.
Yeah.
Because in those book reading lists, he came up as well.
That's
Milton.
it. Yeah.
Paradise Lost. That's the book of Milton, actually.
Oh, okay. What did you think of the opening sequence of that film?
Oh, the opening. I mean, you mean 7?
Yeah, that is amazing. That's like a short film in itself.
It was first. After that, that opening title, which I think, and also that it was played in reverse at the end, because Kevin Spacey's name was never mentioned at the beginning.
No. But I mean, the very opening. Yes, you're right. They never mention his name.
So that video is all after. That's what I was gonna say. That after that film 7, that before 7, it was only, as far as I know, it was
right.
James Bond, that they had some kind of a motion graphic or some kind of opening with kind of giving a clue about what's the adventure of James Bond is going to be in this film.
No, you're absolutely right. They never mentioned Kevin Spacey in the opening credits at all.
The way they made it to almost like a little music video, and
well, that's what I was going to say. It's like, and apparently I did a bit of research on this. So David Fincher asked another filmmaker to do that as basically it's a short film in itself.
Exactly.
And I mean that's amazing. It like you could actually watch it as a short film because it's so like it's so disturbing and it's so incredibly is it meticulous? Do you know what I mean? Like
and also it's like David Fincher himself. They say he's the king of inserts and close-ups.
Yes.
And if you listen to opening sequence, is all about inserts and close-up of his writing. He's taking this picture up and he's cutting his. And also remember throughout the film when they kind of break into his house, that's how he makes he said the girl says to what's his name? The Brad Pitt's character. I can't remember what was his name.
David Mills.
Is it Mills? Yeah, Detective Mills. He says, "Oh, we searched for the whole house, and you could not believe it. We didn't find a single fingerprint." And he said, "No, you're right. I don't believe it. Go search more." Okay. And
yes.
then fast forward, when he comes to Kevin Spacey, come down to the police station. He says, "Detective, and all that thing." And then
it's the library. He's in the library.
And then when they're talking to him, he's sitting quietly in the interrogation room, and that's when he come. They say, "Oh, by the way, this guy has no fingerprint. He's been cut in it." And with those three, and this information is revealed. So at the beginning, you see in that very interesting opening title, someone's cutting using a blade, cutting their fingerprints, and then the line in the middle, and there it just makes us, that's why they couldn't find any fingerprint.
Yeah.
Because you already been...
sorry.
No, it's cool. You already been given information at the beginning. As you said, very good opening title. I'll give you all these details. He's writing, he's taking out, he's sewing things and cutting them, that fingertip.
Well, you don't know what's going on, do you? Because
exactly.
it's open. So you have no idea, but you just think it sucks you in completely into them. And you think, what's going on here? What's all this going on? And then obviously later on in the film, you realize actually you're seeing the opening sequence through the eyes of the serial killer and how
it's a POV, exactly.
Yeah, and it's really clever, but it's so disturbing because it's done in very minute details. Do you know what I mean? He's so meticulous about the way he does things, and he's thought everything through, and he's taken Polaroids and he's stuck them up, and all these awful.
And he's got that gritty feelings, because if you get homemade thing, it doesn't feel like cinematic. It feels like someone used Super 8 with only the camera. And after that, when you mention, it's interesting that it became something of the thing. Nowadays, lots of films from different genres, they have an opening title. They have some kind of emotion, kind of little motion graphics or little other. And after 7, it became popular. It almost came like a... And I want you to if you like that, it's in art movement. There is an art movement called Dadaism. Okay. And that at the beginning, what you saw, it's very close to Dadaism, the style of the visual. And if you, I think it's 2000 or 2001. There is a band, is an alternative band called 9 Inch Nails.
Yes. Yeah, so but they did the music for it, didn't they?
Yeah, they got a video called The Closer.
Yes. And it's called the percussion or the percussion. It's like a special version of the song.
Closer. Yeah, and if you go on YouTube, you can't watch it unless you put your information that you're 18 plus.
Yeah. No, I've heard it.
That exactly has the same feeling in the visual, the way you saw at the beginning opening of the...
Yeah. Because the original song is called Closer, but then there's more lyrics to it. But then the version they used for the opening sequence of 7 is just like the instrumental.
Exactly. 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah. It's called something in brackets, the precursor or something like that. But then it's funny. As soon as you hear that music, you think right away of the opening sequence of 7.
Yeah.
Straight. So that's obviously saying how much of a master he is at his craft, David Fincher,
exactly,
to be able to put both of them together. So yeah, but apparently 7 was sort of loosely based on, like you said, we were talking about earlier, the Italian horror films.
I don't know about that. So if you have any information, that would be new for me as well.
Yeah.
Me personally, I wouldn't classify 7 as a horror personally, but I would put it on a psychological thriller, which made like a detective thing. But because the approach of it was break the genre of like give you all this gritty, rainy the ambience of it, the seeing all these rotten, huge man being, as you said, the opening scene, and always it's raining and in distorted camera angle, not focusing, and the beautiful cinematography of Darvish Khanji. That is just, by the way, he's Iranian, Darvish Khanji, Iranian French.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize.
So it was almost like a single-handedly mixed kind of the approach of like element of horror,
yes,
and gore with detective film.
Yeah.
But what it makes it different and became instant classic is it was because it used so perfectly and combined these two genre that after that any film that trying to look like that, everyone says, oh, it's trying to be Seven, even if it's detective film, because up to that one, detective film was all about focusing on the detective and they're police and they're clever, but they would not show the gritty and grisliness of these horrible crimes that's happening.
Whereas with Seven, I think. Sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
No. Whereas I was going to say, because you're talking about the ambience and everything, is that with Seven, like there's a scene where Morgan Freeman's talking to Gwyneth Paltrow, and she tells him she's pregnant, but she hasn't told her husband, and she's been, she's like, did he tell you I'm a school teacher, but I've been able to find work? He said the schools here are so terrible, and the city they live in is not a nice place where they live in, is it? It's like you said, it's run down, it's rough, it's dirty, and it gives you that very kind of, like you said, gritty, dirty feeling. It's not a place that you'd feel safe to be in.
And he mentioned it in dialogues as well. Morgan Freeman, because Morgan Freeman is opposite Detective Mills, Brad Pitt.
And he's
impatient. He's calm, collective. He goes and listens to Bach. He studies. To him is more than just using a gun, or he sees he's more. He's a man of wisdom.
Well, that's it. It was that you've got the contrast. You got the old cop who's about to retire, and you got the
yin
new
yang.
And then you've got the new cop who's fed up, and he wants to be recognized, and he wants to be, like you said, he's new. He wants to impress people. He's got ambition, and he's been slowed down by this guy, in his opinion, who's just going to the library and listening to music and stuff, and he wants to just sort of get on right to it. But then he's also very impatient, which gets him into trouble at points, doesn't it?
Impatient and very emotional.
The
last one, if you look at the last one, he's the last.
The last one's awful.
And he says, I killed your wife because I'm envious of your perfect life.
I want.
And wrath is the final piece, which Morgan Freeman says says, if you kill him, you give him what he wants.
Yeah, he wins.
But then at the same time, Morgan Freeman knows that this situation is so hard, because he was aware of that she's pregnant. And then he, at the last moment, and remember, he's not a violent person, and the killer says, oh, he didn't know. You didn't know. And then Detective knows what didn't know. And then at that point, Morgan Freeman slapped the guy. He's the guy who says, in 30 years, I never pull out my gun, and he's very calm and collective. So even he is feeling the gravity of the situation, and he becomes violent for a very brief moment. And he turns around when he does that. If you look at the acting of Morgan Freeman, he instantly regretted and turns around, tell him, if you kill him, you give him what he wants. But the way he said it, he knows if he kills the guy, okay, he understands it. And when it has happened at the end, when they put him in a car to take him away, he turns around and say, whatever he needs, take care of him.
Yeah, I know. I mean, what a way to end a film, right? With the box.
Oh, yeah.
There's that famous thing where he goes, what's in the box?
What's in the box? Exactly. What in the box? That famous crying close-up of Brad Pitt, that he wants to cry and control his emotion. And it was his big breakthrough Brad Pitt, that film, because
Yeah, I
up
can
to that
imagine.
point he had one in Thelma Lewis, and he had in True Romance with small,
Small parts.
kind of not very serious, and then he had another film called California, which he was a psychopath. But this film put him on a map as a serious actor.
But he's a really good actor. But the problem is that he had. I mean, we were talking about Seven. He's so good looking that for a very long time, I think Hollywood just posted him as the pretty boy. But actually, as he's gotten older, you think when you watch him, he genuinely is a really good actor, isn't he? So I think it's taken a long time for people to realize that he's kind of become like Robert Redford. They're very similar in the way that they've aged because they were both very. I mean, they're still both very handsome. Even Robert Redford's probably 80 something now, but
Yeah.
they were kind of in the same boat because when they were young, they were the pretty boys, and no one really took them seriously. They just basically put them as the lead because they were handsome. Do you know what I mean? But then they weren't
You
really.
watched that film together? They were a spy game. They were
Yeah,
together.
they were together. Yeah, and he directed him. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, you're really right. That was probably the first film that made him into a big star. But for sure. So let's go on to one of your. I think we talked about Seven for a long time. Let's go into one of your favorite horror.
I'm going to bring up, as I explained, Hereditary. I watched, I enjoyed. It's
Okay.
psychological. It came out back in 2018.
Okay.
With Toni Collette was in it as well.
Yes.
It's a very good film when it comes to the kind of a witch, kind of a covenant and continuous of that Hereditary, how the whole story pans out, and the decapitation of the daughter at the beginning, the freak accident, and how actually that takes you away of the whole story and take you a different direction, and then bring you back at the end. And the other one I want to mention, I don't know which one you watched, and we can, whatever you choose, we can talk about it. It was Midsummer. I don't know if you watched the Swedish film Midsummer.
No.
Oh, it's a very good film. You should watch it as
I
well. Again,
will.
psychological. Is actually they're saying one of the directors to watch because he only makes horror film.
Okay.
He made the movie Witch, but with on the title or poster instead of W was 2V next to each other.
Okay.
And I think his third film, if I'm not mistaken, I can cross-reference because I don't want people to listen to this podcast and say, "Oh, I'm giving wrong information."
Yes.
Is Lighthouse with William Dafoe, and is that Robert Pattinson?
Oh yeah. From those terrible
There's another black and white
vampire
movie
films.
he made. So Midsummer, definitely something to watch. It takes you, and it's funny. It doesn't really follow the film language, as in making it, typical camera angle and cinematography and mise en scène. But still, as the story progresses, all those kind of directorial choices make sense. Even though it's not your typical, let's say, camera angles or low angle, high angle, or very high contrast German expressionist lighting, etc., which is usually that's the typical of the genre. But actually, colors are very nice. The Swedish gay color, very bright, very relaxed. Lots of big, long shots in the nature, etc. That you wouldn't for a moment, for the first 10-15 of the minutes, think that is a film that is gonna by the end put you in a position that you are scared and you are what the hell just happened, and because usually you were not given any clues that where he's taking you. So this guy, as I said, is called Robert Eggers. He made he's one of his film was The Witch, and then he made Midsummer and The Lighthouse. No, The Witch and the Lighthouse is for Robert Egger, but Midsummer, I do apologize. As I said, I don't want people to listen to this and they say I give wrong information.
Don't worry.
Actually, no, because it's
No.
Midsummer is directed by a different director. It's a Swedish director.
Okay.
Sorry if you're hearing tapping. Is me searching Google because he's
Okay. So
giving wrong information. You have no excuses because you can Google everything. So I don't want on the podcast people listening and tell, what type of podcast. So let's see the director. They're here. Midsummer the movie. Midsummer. It brought up Midsummer. ITV. A movie I watched.
because I thought you were talking about that as well because there's the Midsummer Murders. It's like this terrible.
No, it's just called Midsummer.
Okay.
And Midsummer with the summer is not English summer. It's SOMMAR.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
not mid as in midsummer. So and this is a very good film, and it's directed by, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Ari Aster.
Swedish.
Yeah.
But you know what I was going to say? Swedish horror is very. I mean, I don't know. I've never actually seen, but I remember when The Girl of the Dragon Tattoo, the original one, came out, and I was working at a cinema at that time. The Swedish horror. I mean, that's quite. No, it's not really horror. Is it horror? It's not really, but it's Swedish horror is very. Is also very gritty. It has no boundaries.
It's gritty. Yeah, true. Yeah.
Very brave as well. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't. It's a bit like Asian horror. Asian horror has no boundaries as well. That just pushes you to the edge, literally. But yeah, no, for sure, that's probably one I should definitely watch.
And I think with Tom you spoke, and he likes South Korean film, which I've been watching lots of South Korean. I'll give you another one if you want to watch horror film, South Korean one called The Wailing.
Oh, okay. Tell us about. Do you know what? Because you're talking about South Koreans, and I don't want to switch the subject too much because this is a film show. But I like everyone else got hooked on Squid Game, and then after Squid Game, I was just like I've been busy searching for South Korean films because you know what, the Korean film industry is amazing. Like they've done incredibly well, didn't they? They did Parasite, and then there's that show, and then that's what's kind of basically thrown them into the limelight because you think there's so much incredible film work out there that hasn't been exposed.
The Parasite made them more coming to the international the attention. But if you look at the film that it was made, we're talking about horror. Let's listen to there's a horror film, zombie horror film called
The Wailing.
think if I'm not mistaken, The Wailing. I told you is another one.
Okay.
It's called Train to Bhutan, or let me get the exact title. I don't want to do that. Which is about this train that then while there's and the zombie breakout happens outside, and these people on the train they realize, there's something happening, and then there are let me just find. So they are trapped on the train, and some of the passengers get infected, and the whole thing becomes that try to get to the other side of the train and blockade the entrance of these zombies to them. And that was a very good film, zombie film and horror. Train to Bhutan, the Buskan or something.
And that's a Korean film as well, is it?
Train to, that's South Korean, is called Train to Busan.
Oh, okay. I'll watch that. That sounds really good. So they're all stuck on the train and they can't go anywhere.
Sorry?
They're all stuck on the train and they can't go anywhere.
Yeah. So as they're going, imagine they're going from London to, they're going to Busan. That's the whole name of the destination is Busan.
Okay.
And the outbreak happens. They're oblivion to the whole thing. At one of these stops, they stop the new passengers get on or off or whatever. At that point, couple of infected new passengers get on.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they're sitting waiting for the train to depart, they see the whole mayhem and the zombie trying to attack, etc. So as the train start moving, 2 or 3 people who got bitten, they get on the train.
Okay,
and
and
it's
they get
become that
infected.
it start, they start advancing, biting each other, and then by the time the remaining realize, oh, this is happening, they're not trying to blockade one side so the other infected doesn't come forward. And that's the whole story of this train that is going to Busan, but they have to do whatever they takes to keep themselves away from these zombies.
Yeah.
So it's South Korean. But what I was going to mention, you said you watch a Squid, and then I watched the Wailing, and there are many good South Korean films. One thing I found interesting in all of it, but in these two films I told you, Train to Busan, and also they did the sequence to it, to this Train to Busan,
Okay.
which is like a few years after, etc. Or the Wailing. Did you watch The Parasite and The Squid? And have you noticed they have some kind of a very interesting underlying humor going on?
Yes, that I think that's what's made it very interesting is that both.
So that is happening in all South Korean film, even in the horror ones. If you watch it, and I
Yeah,
think
it's
it's a
very.
very South Korean film. It's a
It's
South Korean approach to, and I think it's
horror.
their part of the culture. No, and also the culture in the film, because in all the films you get that humor, even in their, you had it in The Parasite, you
Yeah,
had
but
it
you know
in
what's funny?
Squid.
It's very subtle, isn't it? It's like it, and I think the reason why they do that, it's very clever because you, when you first watch it, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. So you think, oh, this is going to be a fun, light-hearted film. And then when it gets to the point when it's actually building up and it becomes a horror film, it really takes you on an emotional roller coaster and
Mm,
bashes you around. Whereas if
yeah.
it's like an American film, you just think, oh, this is all quite, like it's just like mundane. It's just like, there's no build up. It's just kind of like, oh, it's going somewhere. Do you know what I mean? But it
Yeah.
really it's kind of like throwing red herrings at you. But you're absolutely right. They're both very similar in tone. There's a very
So if you
underlying
watch, as I
humor.
said, the horror ones from South, because at the beginning when I watch other film like different South Korean genre, I can understand why, let's say, The Parasite had that humor in it, because it's almost a satire, black comedy to it.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
or I could see the other ones that I've seen, like even now everyone talk about Squid Game,
Yeah.
because he got that satire approach to the whole, the mentality of
Well,
social
it's dystopian, isn't it?
yeah.
it's like you said, it's a very disturbing view of society
Yeah.
and
But they
what
even do it
people.
in horrors, because if these horrors I told you that you watch, the Wailing, etc., that undertone humor is in it, and I think that comes from the
Culture.
kind of South Korean culture.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. I have no direct access to try to talk about their culture, but based on what various film I've seen from the various genre of South Korean cinema, I think that is part of something that is like this humor, which is subtle, exists in part of daily life. Because in all those genre, I've seen it.
Yeah, do you know what's funny is that you say that, and I'm half Chinese, and
Mm,
also been I grew up in Hong Kong and I lived in China for a year and I've been there a few times growing up on holiday and stuff. So, but the most exposure I had of mainland China was when I worked and lived there for a year teaching English. And
mm,
with the Chinese culture, so it's probably very similar to South Korean culture as well. I think it's a very Asian thing. You know,
okay.
when they don't like to see face. So, for instance, if a situation happens, they laugh at it. But as a Western, you think that's rude. Do you know what I mean? Does that make
Okay. Okay.
sense? So,
Yeah.
but then, so that would kind of make sense because it's kind of like, when you don't know what to expect, or also when you're being confronted with something, it's embarrassing for them. So
Mm,
it's like laughing off. So if you kind of sort of see a subtle humor, it's
okay.
it's kind of like you're nervous laughing. Do you know what I
Mm,
mean? You're
okay.
so
Mm,
so that kind of makes sense. It's hard to describe, but it's definitely something to do with face. Like they don't like to say to your face if something's wrong. So in a way, it's kind of like I'm thinking. like you said, it's very subtle undertone, because it's kind of like really they're really nervous. They don't know where they stand, and it's making them very uncomfortable. So the only way to kind of make them feel a bit comfortable is by sort of laughing at the situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because as I said, I the more I watched it, the more I find out with all different genre of their South Korean film. And I realized, oh, this is not, because at the first couple of few films, this is years ago, I thought maybe that because that's the approach of the writer and director to want to have to, black comedy or satire. When I introduced to South Korean film many years ago, at the beginning I thought maybe this humor, subtle humor, is approach of that specific director or for that specific genre. But the more I watch South Korean, they, as you just explained about the culture, I realized regardless of the genre, this subtle humor is in all different movies. And I thought to myself, not living in South Korea or never been there, but I thought based on this, and because it's all the different directors and different genre, I can see it. I thought it would be something it is within the culture because they do it so naturally and it comes. And as I said, you watch the movie The Wailing, and and then or the other one I told you, Train, that comedy and humor exists in it, even though it's a zombie film.
Yeah.
This moment of funny humor, and then you continue back for running for your life, trying to stop the zombie to get in through the different advanced towards front of the train, etc. Yeah.
Yes. No, you're right. It's that very fine undertone that's going on, doesn't it? And that's also what makes it very addictive to watch those kind of films, because I think it surprises you even more because it's making you laugh at one point, and then at one point it just completely shocks you. You're like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
So I
it's
think
the same thing about Midsummer, because when you start watching, it almost start. I don't want to give too much away, but it's almost start as a normal teenager kind of a road trip film, and some kind of a college in America, and then they end up going on a summer trip to some idyllic village somewhere in North Sweden, and so it's it's mise en scène. Nothing is giving you away that you're watching a horror film, psychological horror film. But by the end of the film, I just give image. If you like The Wicker Man, I don't know if you've seen that.
I have. I think I saw it. That film's very disturbing.
Yeah, exactly. So imagine that being reimagined again with this Swedish take on it, and it's instead of being an old guy going some remote island off the coast of England, it's some young first year university college student going to north of Sweden. So I give you this much. If you like that, the Wicker Man movie, definitely I recommend to go watch Midsummer.
Okay, for sure. So that's a very good. Let me try to think of some. There's loads of them. Oh, I was going to suggest one. Have you ever seen the film Sinister?
Is that which one? Is that with Ethan Hawke?
Yes.
Yeah. As the first one, because there are a few after that came out, but I remember the first one.
Yeah, I've only seen the first one.
They moved to the new house, so I'll leave it to you to introduce it.
Okay. It's been it's been a while since I've seen it, but the first time I saw it, I didn't really know what it was, so I just thought I'll give it a watch. I can't remember; it showed up on somewhere on the internet on a streaming channel. So basically, it's a family. They move to a new. Okay, so let me set it up. So the opening sequence. This is another one where the opening sequence is basically an indication of where the film is going to take you. So you have no idea what this film is, right? You don't know what it's about. You start watching it, and it starts off with the creepiest home video ever of this family being basically they've been hanged by a tree with bags over their head, and then a lightning bolt or something comes, and the branches cut, and basically they're all basically been hung to death. And that's like the that's the opening sequence. It's really disturbing. So this family's basically, it's a black and white home movie. You're seeing these four sort of bodies. Their legs are wailing around. They're still alive. but they've been basically hung by their necks. And then the chairs or whatever underneath them has been taken away or something like that. And they're basically left to die, and they've been hanged to death. So that's the opening, which is very, very disconcerting and disturbing. And then it goes off into the opening of the main film, which is where Ethan Hawke and his young family they move to a new house. And basically it turns out that this new house is they're in a small town, and he's basically researching because he's he's like a crime novelist or something like that. So he writes about real crime, and he literally moves into the house of that murder from the very beginning, where you see the home video of the family that's been killed. And he's trying to work it all out because he's writing a book. And obviously, as he's finding clues out, things start to go funny. And you find out there's this kind of sort of not Satan-like figure, but he comes for children. Yeah, he comes for children, and he takes children away with them. But before he takes these children away with him, he basically sort of
make them orphaned to become orphans.
No, he basically sort of puts them in a trance, and he makes them kill their entire family. So while he's
then they become orphaned, he takes them away.
Yeah, exactly. He takes them to his little world. So basically, Ethan Hawke's working that out, and then he's working out all these other murders that have been going on in other places with similar consequences. Like there's a family that's been basically gassed in a car, and then he puts all together, that actually it's one of the children that's been doing it. So it is very, very creepy, but it's probably the opening sequence of that home video. And like you said, when it's a home video, or it looks when it looks like it's home video style, it automatically gives you that sense that this is really happening. And that's what makes it very disturbing, because how many home videos do we all have as families of us growing up? Do you know what I mean? That's exactly what makes it really traumatic, I think.
And since you brought it here, and it is Halloween special, it would be rude to not mention the Blair Witch Project.
Yes, that's a good way. Good leader. Well done.
Example of the found footage approach.
Yes.
Also very, very interesting, because they single-handedly started such genre. Their strategy to approach the whole thing was very interesting. That they started this social media.
Well, it was before, wasn't it? I saw a thing about this, because you're talking.
It was still, I think it was Facebook and stuff were happening. It wasn't an era of Instagram, but I think it was Facebook still existed. There is still.
No, it was before that, because I think it was 2000 or before that, and it was just when the internet was kind of.
I remember they released lots of rumors about the reality of the situation.
And that was what was really clever about it, because the internet had been around for a few years in the 90s, but it hadn't really sort of kicked off. And then when it got to about the 99, 2000, that's when it started getting really popular. So they found a way.
1999 it came out.
It. Yeah, that's
so it was pre-Facebook, but still it was the era of
before the internet sort of kicked off. Yeah.
It was still the Google thing. They were releasing lots of people on. So and that was the whole thing,
And they were saying that it was it was a very low budget film, but
it was made under 500,000.
Wow. And they made a hell of a lot of money back. When you think about the way they filmed it, it's not, like you said, it looks like a documentary style. Anyone could go out and film it. But they marketed that film really clever because of the internet coming up. They basically, they already sort of made a way to torture the audiences and post these things everywhere going, this is found footage. And, nobody understood, nobody knew. and they thought it was real. So they went, "Oh, we're going to go watch this film. That's a documentary of this real footage of these students who've gone out into the woods and stuff."
The whole witch in Maryland. At the time, I was a shout out to a girlfriend of mine at the time. Was going out with her American girl. She was from the Maryland area.
Okay.
So she was the one told me about the whole situation about, oh, they found these new footages about and like everyone else, everyone bought to the way
they believed it. Yeah.
rumored around, and then and as I said, they single-handedly started a new genre which is called found footage. And I had to bring it up because it's Halloween, and they did a good job. Regardless, it's going to be one of the film is always going to be mentioned in the whole history of horror film, cinema of horror film genre. So and it was very clever because again, at the end, when they end up, I don't want to give it away. No one has seen it, but those who've seen it, that when they end up going to that little
house,
cottage, or whatever it is in the middle of the wood. Again, you don't see anyone or hear anything.
Well, you never see her, do you?
It's all the reaction of these noises and sound, and then the reaction of the girl, the sister who's gone missing, the last remaining, trying to record and say stuff that she knows is coming to an end. And again, Blair Witch, the Blair Witch Project, we needed to mention it.
It's a good time because you said it's like Sinister. The beginning is like found footage made to. It's the same with the Blair Witch Project, where these 3 film students go out to investigate, the deaths of this myth of what's supposed to be a witch, and they go around talking to people. To get more information, and there's that. But the thing is, that film has been spoofed so many times now. There's that famous shot where she's got a torch up her nose, and she's like,
shaking, and
her nose is
going down. Yeah,
but that's been kind of obviously because that film came out a long time ago. But that's been like taken the piss out of, and so many comedies with snot going down the nose and stuff.
Yeah, the parodies, but because that film is a trendsetter and became a classic. And if you look at it, lots of as we have to pay our homage to the master of suspense, Mr. Alfred Hitchcock, and a Psycho. That you see lots of parody of Psycho, or even the scream itself at the beginning is just a straightforward. Oh, he's screaming. The movie, the whole thing is made on that little scene of the shower and the Psycho. The knife coming up and down, and many parody of that. Big parodies always made based on the cultural phenomenon which becomes part of the pop culture.
Yeah. So really, it's like showing praise, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's in the collective psyche, popular culture. It goes in there, and then when you make the reference, everyone picks that up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like talking about movies of, Quentin Tarantino, which I was listening to one of his podcasts. He said, "Listen, now I have become part of the pop culture, and there's nothing beyond that for me to achieve." And he was very ecstatic and excited about it, which of course, because now his legacy is going to remain after him. There are lots of filmmakers come, make film and go, but if you're setting trend and you become pop kind of a cultural phenomenon, and they reference you at even parody or seriousness, then that means your job is done as a person, as an author, cinema filmmaker. So author of film, then that's interesting.
So it's funny because you brought up Psycho, and I thought of something when I was I think I was about 12. I remember going to stay with my cousins and my relatives, my aunt, in the States, in New York, and we went to Florida for a couple of weeks or a week or something like that. So we went to Disney World and we went to Universal Studios and all that. And I think it was Universal Studios, they took us to there's like a house that looks like the house from Psycho, right? And you go inside the house, And basically, there's these people that work there, and they take you all to explain how they film that scene in the shower. So they show the actual scene, and then they show how they made it. And that was the first time I'd ever. I think I must have known about the film, but I never saw it. But like you said, it's popular culture, so you hear about it. You know, you hear bits of it, and the shower scene was so famous. So that was the first time I saw that scene, not the actual film. And then, and then at the end of the day, when we went back to the hotel, I remember I got my cousin to stand outside the bathroom when I was taking a shower because I was so
watch over me. Watch over me. There are lots of films like that you know the scene as within the pop culture, but you haven't seen the whole film. And Psycho and that scene is one of those cultural
iconic.
phenomena that everyone knows and heard of them.
Yeah, we talked about this before, didn't we, with the music and the editing. Actually, since you're talking about Alfred Hitchcock, might as well go on to the other one, The Birds. Did you ever see that one?
Yeah, I have seen The Birds.
That's also scary because that's not people. That's nature. That's nature. That's basically saying we've had enough of the way you humans treat us. We're giving, we're giving we're giving it back to you, basically. But it's really funny because have you ever had a situation where suddenly you start seeing lots of birds in one place? And it really freaks you out.
Tapped out in something that it does happen, and you said it is something that it is actually. I was reading the other day because, as I said, I started researching about my new horror script I'm starting writing. That one of the subgenre is the nature.
Yeah.
And a takeover of the swarm, the lots of bees coming, or now the birds, the best example that we can refer to. Alfred, he's got the birds that they take over, and then the nature when it takes over, and then it makes it, tap into that phobia that lots of people have. We have people that are afraid of birds, and also the way that it, the represented that then all this, because you've seen, as you said, lots of birds, sometimes flock of birds flying around, and suddenly thinking, if it happens in reality, if they start attacking all these seagulls, because they do now and then try to steal your chips when you're seaside.
Do you know what? It's so funny. I mean, I don't want to get sidetracked, but that's happened so many times where there's a place called Brighton, which is like a seaside resort. And I remember going once with these kids because I was like a tour guide at one point. And when they were all having ice cream or something, there was this random guy who had a pretzel. He just put a pretzel, and this seagull came flying down, scooped it up, and flew off.
Yeah, they do that, and it's funny because I go to Brighton. I like Brighton, and I was watching the other day one of these BBC Nature program. And did you know that this is something I didn't know that they are very they're ambush kind of birds, so they do steal other birds, catch or even their chicks, etc., and eat them. But they always do use the element of surprise. So if you have an eye contact with a seagull never comes for your stuff. So if always keep them in your front of you and look at them. They are very clever. And that was on that BBC program. It says if you have keep an eye contact with them, they only come and snatch your food when you are not seen, or from behind, or from above, when you're not having eye contact. So he was saying that if you have an eye contact, they realize they can't use the element of surprise, and therefore they never try to snatch your food.
But yeah.
Problem
actually, Brighton scares me because of all the seagulls. I find seagulls scary when there's too many of them, and then they're so big, and
they are vicious a bit. Those yellow big beaks are.
They're just. But like you said, there's some. I mean, there is an actual phobia of birds. Yeah. Let me look it up on the internet and see what it's.
Why not?
Phobia of birds. I'll just see what the name is. So Oh, orphanophobia.
There you go. They all come from Latin. Yeah, arachnophobia or
It's like,
dystophobia.
yeah, like the French is araignée, is it like yeah. So spiders, yeah, and so it's, like I said, it all comes from Latin, but orpho, ugh, orpho. It's hard when you're dyslexic. Orpheobia, orphobia, something like that. But
Yeah,
yes, it's
no,
from
it's
that. So
fine. Let's see. Yeah.
that's the fear of birds, and the
After,
symptoms include sweaty, anxiety, heart palpitations, nausea, and avoidance behavior.
ornithophobia, I think.
Oh, is it?
Ornithophobia. That's what it says.
That's it. Yeah. Or yes,
It's
you
funny.
probably said
There's
it
a
right
picture.
compared.
There is a picture of the birds, the movie from how they describe. When you Google it, it says um, ornithophobia.
That's it. That's probably better.
And it's defined as an abnormal and irrational fear of birds. And then there's a picture of it, which from the scene from The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock.
Do you know? It's fun that I think like because we were talking about every time. That's another good case of how it's gotten into popular culture, isn't it? Like you'll just see if you go to a park and you see lots of birds in the playground, just sort of all start sort of there's a flock of them or whatever. It kind of is quite daunting, and
Yeah.
and yeah, it's especially when they all sort of kind of swoop over you and fly away. That's quite freaky as well. But the main bit of that film that always sticks in my mind is the bit where the school kids are running from the birds. They're all running from, and these even the kids are getting attacked by the birds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just but that's another film that's basically kind of installed
I just
fear.
want to cross-reference here. You remember when we talked about the Omen, and in the Omen there is a Rottweiler dog becomes like a guard dog of Damien.
Oh yeah.
So in the second part, the Omen Damien, which is he's a teenager, there is a crow.
Oh, okay.
And there is when the crow goes around and that crow appears on the doorstep or wherever, then the next victim is whoever finds out about the nature of Damien is somehow gets killed.
Yes.
Under very weird circumstances.
Sure.
So this is a theme that is they continued from the Omen to the second one.
Okay.
But in the second one, you get this black raven that when it appears, and then you get the close up on his eyes and his face, and I still remember that those, and you get these eerie
beady eyes
with the church, gospely, gothic soundtrack, and then he's this close up of this head of this crow looking with the eye and everything else. So if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it. Go watch it.
No, but you've just raised a good point, because actually when you look at crows or ravens' eyes, they're really freaky. They're really scary. These beady, horrible things that are looking at you. And as you were talking about that, actually, the ravens and crows, the Tower of London?
Yeah.
If you go there, apparently, the myth that one of those beefeaters, they all tell the tourists, is that if there's ever a day where there are no crows or ravens, I think it's ravens.
Yeah, the black one, yeah.
That's a very bad sign, because that means that's the collapse of the monarchy and everything in England. So as long as so that's kind of like the positive side of birds, that they need to always be ravens and crows but I'd rather keep them well away from me. So
different cultures, it's funny, as you mentioned, it's different culture has different interpretation for different iconology and symbolism. So there are, like you're from China, I mean, one side, or Hong Kong. So 8, I believe number 8 is a very
lucky number. But
yeah,
4 is unlucky.
Okay, I didn't know about 4. Okay,
but because 4 means so well, hang on. So in Cantonese it's ya yi sam se lot ta gao sa. In Mandarin it's yi er san si wu liu chu ba. But se can also mean death, and Chinese people are very superstitious. So
About number 4. Okay.
yeah, so for instance, in a lift, you would never ever see a number 4.
Oh,
There would go 1,
interesting.
2, 3, 5. But then in the Western buildings, then you would see. But yeah, they are very, very superstitious. So 8's a very lucky number for Chinese people. 4 is a very unlucky number for Chinese people.
So in
So
Persian and Persian and Iranian culture, number 7 is a very sacred number.
oh
Because
really?
7, yeah, you get the 7 that they say is a magical number, that everything, the universe, the whole world is based on number 7.
Oh
And
wow, that's really interesting.
it's a lot
And is
like
there an
Indian.
unlucky number?
Well, not that I'm aware of, specifically in Persian, like a culture, but it might be out. So I can't really be sure to tell you the truth.
Yeah. But you know, in Western culture, because you're talking about numbers now, in Western culture, for some reason, it's the number 13.
Yeah, I know that the Friday the 13th. I was gonna say that, but that's a very Western culture. I didn't want to refer. Oh, this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
but yeah. The Friday the 13th. Apparently, you're supposed to be the worst time of the year. If it's Friday and 13th of the month, then you
Yeah.
have to be careful.
Yeah.
Things go wrong on that day, on that bad omen Friday.
Yeah. One of the when I was teaching earlier, because I teach swimming is my day job, and one of the kids went under the lifeguard chain, and I went, "Don't go under the ladder; it's bad luck." And he went, and his kid went, "Oh, it's okay. I picked up a penny earlier."
Okay, earlier on. Oh, I'm lucky now. It's fine.
But yeah, it is really funny how superstition is also actually that's a very big thing in horror film genres, isn't it? Superstition.
Yeah, as you mentioned, superstition, and when earlier we spoke about Suspiria and those dialogue, and also that is within the with all different cultures. Although there are different angle and approach to it, but they exist in all different cultures. So I was during my research, Carl Jung, the famous psychologist. According to Jungian psychology, you got the top, which get the whole conscious and unconscious part of your psyche, and also then this conscious bit becomes the ego, and then further down you go. You bringing down your unconscious to conscious and become aware of your unconscious, and you try to close the gap. The more you become aware of your real self. But one thing that is interesting, that is in the unconscious side, there is two parts of the unconscious side. There is unconscious, which is the individual unconscious, like Sonia as an individual.
Yeah.
Okay. And what has become part of your unconscious identity, your kind of parents, your background, all the other things, the way you grew up, etc. But then for each individual have an individual unconscious side, they got a collective unconscious, which is the collective unconscious side of each human psyche. Is that part is that everything from throughout the human history, knowledge and all the other things has become part of, like the new generation, they know about everything that is being passed on to them, either is knowledge or and on that collective unconsciousness, which is these things exist from dawn of the history, the fear of unknown, the dark, and the witchcraft, voodoo, evil, and all these things exist in the collective unconscious of the human psyche. So that's why, although there are different interpretation of it, but it exists in all different type of corner of the world, in the kind of cultures and people and tribes from early age, that they never even come across each other. So if you look at it, Southeast Asia or Africa or anywhere, in all different kind of nationality and culture, this fear, this evil is unknown, and dark side exists because it's within our collective unconsciousness.
Yes. No, that makes a lot of sense. Like actually, because when you were talking, I was thinking, like, if you think about it, in Christianity, I mean, I don't want to get too deep, but in Christianity, technically, Halloween wouldn't be celebrated because Halloween's pagan. Well, no, but in Halloween, it is originally supposed to be scary, isn't it? It's all about, like you said, it's the devil. It's It's all the kind of like, you know, the opposite end of you know, Christianity. And then you got for instance, in the Chinese culture, we have in October something called the Mid Autumn Festival. So that's when we put out lanterns to scare away all the evil
Evil
spirits.
spirit. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
It
like you
exists
said, there's
everywhere.
some
Yeah.
similarities. Yeah,
It's different approach to it depending on that specific culture,
sure.
but the root of it
All comes from the
exists in
same.
all different cultures because it within, as I mentioned, is in our collective psyche, unconscious psyche. So that's why if you look at any different culture around the world, Far East, Middle East, South America, North Africa, even more kind of primitive cultures and type of civilization, that all existed. This dark side of the always dark, or is a witch, or is a
Yeah,
negative power, is evil, or and it's all there. As I said, different approach to it, and that's why it works. And I think that's one of the main reason that horror film, regardless where it's made and which country and which, as soon as you watch it, you get the whole idea because it's about the evil, it's about the darkness, it's about that something from beyond and come is an entity that is we have no control over. It's a dimension is not known to us, and
yes.
it's all tap into that primal fear and collective unconscious of human psyche.
Mm. Did you ever see that film? I just thought about it. I saw it last Halloween. It's on Netflix. Creep.
Creep, which is that the one that happens in London underground
No, it's
with the
what's his
German girl?
face? Mark Duplass.
Let me see. Let me like quickly.
Mark Du. So that was a very. Hang on, his name's called Mark Duplass. So he's an actor, but he's also an American filmmaker. So
Oh
he,
no, I haven't seen that. 2000, is that the? I just checked out.
I think it was
Creep,
2014 it came out.
Creep. Oh, this is why Creep 2 is. Oh no, yeah,
There is
sure.
a Creep too.
2014. I haven't seen it, but I just saw that. So okay, is it any good? I can go
It
watch that
is.
later.
It's actually quite a show. That's on Netflix. It's actually quite a relatively short horror film. I think it's probably an hour or ish.
Okay.
But and it's a very simple concept where
Mhm,
there's only really two people in the entire film. So
mhm,
basically, it starts off with this guy that's been hired. He's a filmmaker. Um, so he's been hired by this guy for a job. Basically, there was an ad in the paper, and he's called up and said, "Oh, I can help. You know, whatever." So he goes to this guy's house. This filmmaker goes to this guy's house, and this guy is a bit strange. Likes to jump out of nowhere and scare the crap out of you as a way of introducing himself.
mhm.
And basically, what happens is that he goes into his house, and the guy who's basically employed the filmmaker says, okay, so he said, I've got terminal brain cancer or something. Um, I haven't got long to live or something like that. And I want to leave basically uh, lots of footage of me talking to my son, for him when he gets older. So, things like shaving and all this kind of stuff. But then as the film goes on, it's these two men in a house. You find that this guy who's called, quote, Joseph, is not as he seems. He's
Okay.
very, very disturbed. And you could
Okay.
say, and yes, so it just gets, and because the filmmaker's been hired for like a day or something, he has to stay with him. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, but it's that's another way of explaining, like we're talking about this subtle undertone of humor. It's funny in parts, but it's funny because it's so unnerving. Like there's
Okay.
one scene where he's standing at a door. I know it's before he's got this wolf mask, this really scary wolf mask that he puts on, and he starts dancing around in it, singing this kind of happy like song that he's improvised, and you can watch it on YouTube. It's he's called Peach Fuzz. That's the name of his mask, his wolf mask, Peach Fuzz. And you think, I, when you see it, you're like, you don't know what to quite make of it, and you're like, this is actually funny, but it's really, really unnerving and scary. So your brain's trying to work out: is it funny or is it scary? Is it
The
funny?
more you get into it, the more scary it comes.
Yeah. It's kind of like, when you taste something and your brain is busy trying to figure out
Figure that,
if,
yeah.
if it's good or bad. So it's very clever. But that's Creep's a very good film for that, because it's only two people in the whole film, and it must have been a low budget film. It looks like it, and it's very simple. It's in the middle of nowhere in the woods, and in this house that he's hired out. But he's told the filmmaker that basically that's his family's house. And
I'm gonna watch that. I haven't.
yeah, watch it. I don't want to give too much away for it, but it's called Creep for a reason, and that's because this guy's a real creep.
No, I googled it. I think I'm gonna watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one to watch. It's unsettling. It's funny, but it's very, very, like, it just makes you very uncomfortable. You're kind of thinking, I would not want to be that guy in the same house with this absolute weirdo.
Good to know. This is my watching list. I thought while we are at it, it would be rude not mention the movie Get Out and Us by Mr. Jordan Peele.
Okay, tell us about that.
You haven't seen Get Out?
No.
Oh, Get Out is a film by Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele is a very interesting person. Jordan Peele is he's done lots of comedy sketch for comedy channel, and there are lots of it on YouTube and everywhere else. You can watch them. But it was his debut as a director, writer, and also producer. Get Out. It's a psychological film. I just want to get the name of the because the main role is played by our homemade British actor Daniel Kaluuya.
Okay.
Daniel Kaluuya is the one that has done many things now. So that was the movie put him on the map. It's a psychological horror film. I don't want to give too much away, but long story short, the black girlfriend, the African American boyfriend, is taken to this mansion north upper state in New York with the white girlfriend, and he finds it peculiar. Things happen. It's so peculiar, and he finds it a bit weird. But he tries to put it on that maybe it's because of the cultural difference that this white.
Oh, I think I've heard of this, but I haven't seen it yet.
Class, yeah, and they're different, socially and culturally.
So he's black and his girlfriend's white, and they go to the parents' house. Yeah,
exactly. So, and he made another film, the director Jordan Peele, called Us. But for me, the best one was the Get Out. And it's funny that because he's coming from that comedy background himself. But when he started writing feature films, he made two back-to-back horror film, psychological. And it's funny that what is interesting for, I think, about his film for me and for other people is because he uses lots of social kind of connotation and put it within the story, okay, of his film, that like tackling the whole racism and the whole approach of America and white culture against African American culture, etc., and use that as a background of his film as social injustice, and then suddenly takes you to something that it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes, as I said, we were just mentioning. I thought it would be rude to not mention Halloween and horror film and the new common Mr. Jordan Peele, his movie Get Out and Us. So I put that out as a psychological horror film that
another good one to watch for Halloween.
Yeah.
Did you I know it's a good question to ask. What are your? Oh, I was going to talk about Stephen King because obviously
Sure, definitely.
he's written a few famous books that became films. So I was going to say, what was your favorite in film interpretation of one of his horror films? I was going to say Carrie and bring Carrie up, but if you can...
I actually was listening to one of his videos, funny enough,
Oh,
literally
okay.
2 days ago. Of Stephen King himself, of Stephen King's interviews. Because as I said, I started researching about writing my own horror script. So, and Stephen King being the king of horror writers, so I watched some of his videos and his tips about how to write a horror novel or horror script. I'm not a big fan of, to be honest with you, cinematic version of Stephen King's.
Okay.
But not that that might comes across that I'm trying. No, it just doesn't make.
What? Yeah.
Not my taste. But saying that, I still think The Shining. Now you brought it up. The Shining, Stanley Kubrick. The Shining is for me is the best Stephen King, because the book was written by Stephen King. It was a short story, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And then he also, at that time, Stephen King said, "Oh, he wanted to start. I think it was his second or third attempt to write a script for horror."
Yeah.
And he said he wrote the first draft of the script for The Shining, but when Warner Brother took
he hated it though, didn't he?
Sorry.
He hated that version of Shining.
No, yeah, he was talking about it. But when they Warner Brother, they bought the right and they gave it to Stanley Kubrick. One of the conditions, Stanley Kubrick read the first draft and Stanley Kubrick didn't like it. So Stanley Kubrick himself and another female writer, which I can't remember the name, they wrote the script based on the Shining short story, and the famous The Shining. You see, this is a script that is written by Stanley Kubrick and his collaborator, which at the time, according to Stephen King, he didn't like it, as you just mentioned. But when he said he got to know more about movie and script writing, and he realized that, how different the medium of movie is. And actually later on he admitted himself that he said, I realized that it was a good thing. I didn't get offended that they didn't accept it, because at the time I was a very newcomer in writing a script. And he was actually happy that it was taken over, and he was happy with the end film.
Oh, really? I thought he actually hated it, and he still goes on record for saying he still hates it. So maybe it's a bit of both.
As I said, I watched a new recent video of him, and this video is about 20 minutes, but it's about 10 tips that he gives away to writers, how to write. And in one of the section, because it's almost like a montage of his many decades of interviews, and in some of them he looks older, and some of them he's younger. But in about that, he says he was not aware of the medium, and he really wasn't a big fan of filmmaking and script writing. But he said throughout the years he learned that it's totally a different language from novel writing. And then he realized that that was a good thing, and he didn't get offended by it, because then he realized that. But that's, now we bring it up. The Shining is another example of one of my favorite.
No, it's one of mine, to be honest, as well. I really think it's really, really creepy. And there was that famous scene with the official trailer, where it was nothing but that lift opening up and all that blood gushing out of it.
Yeah. So
that was all the trailer was just that, the lift opening up very slowly, and very slowly all this red blood is.
It's in slow motion. It's in slow motion, yes.
Oh, is that what yes, in slow motion, yeah. And that's it. But that's enough to keep you hooked and think, what the hell is this film going to be about? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what's funny is that, because we're talking about a film, that actual hotel is actually haunted, isn't it?
Well, they say it's built over the some kind of a burial ground of Native American of that
Yeah, it's
area.
Colorado, I think, isn't it? Because he stayed there with his wife in that
In that
room.
hotel,
He stayed there in that room, and apparently, him and his wife. So literally, they'd gone up to their room, did whatever, gone to the bathroom, whatever, and they left their suitcase on the bed. They hadn't unpacked anything. They went downstairs, came back, and everything was unpacked, and it was just all kinds of weird, creepy stuff going on in that room, which is supposed to be haunted. But it's the Stanley Hotel. That's it. It's the Stanley Hotel. And
the sequel has come out. You know? Do you know that?
With Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, that he's a grown up now, and it wasn't as good as the first one, but it's more commercial approach to it.
Yeah.
But one thing I was going to mention about Stanley Kubrick is The Shining. Is the first of all is opening scene, which how the music, the synthesizer music, make it because if you take that off and put some kind of a different type of music, or even without the music, you think, oh, this is the holiday movie, some family going to a nice, summer holiday up in the mountain.
Yeah, but it's that music. But it's the opening shot, isn't it? It's driving in the car. It's just a car.
Yeah,
driving in the
up
mountain.
nice scenery, up the mountain. And the other thing I want to mention is about because Stanley Kubrick was very meticulous about paying attention,
and he was a real perfectionist, wasn't he? He did numerous takes, and he drove them all insane.
And the other thing was, he is the master of his style, which is the single vanishing point. So everything for him is about symmetry. Everything is pattern and symmetry in all his movies. Even though he directed so many 10 or 11 films in different 11 genre, but his single kind of characteristic of mise-en-scène and single vanishing point and symmetry exists. And he's
can you explain what symmetry is?
So is exactly, so anything, if you put the symmetry of it, when you put the line in the middle of any shape, is exactly identical, left of that line to the right to that line.
Okay.
So the single vanishing point is when there is all the perspective, your vanishing point is on the horizon is only one, and everything goes to the almost perspective goes down towards that one line, and it gives you that the sense of perspective. It becomes much more deeper.
Okay.
So if you look at it, if you Google in YouTube single vanishing point is Stanley Kubrick, there are so many analysis about his style, so you can get the idea under a bit of video montage from his different films, and when they explain on it, you realize what I mean. So I think The Shining would not make sense if any other director made it, because how he used that symmetry approach to mise-en-scène, from the maze at the end of the film to all those pattern and all those carpet and everything. And also the other thing in the original
yes, I saw this very loosely. Yes, I heard about this.
Yeah, in that original Stephen King books, those the twin sister, come play with us, Danny.
Come play with us, Danny.
They're not twins. They're not twins. That was a decision. That was a decision made by Stanley Kubrick, because twin, apparently, in lots of culture, it has a kind of connotation of evil, especially coming from a black magic and voodoo. As if you look at.
Oh, really? Because what's funny is that in Chinese culture, twins are lucky.
Oh, okay. So he went for the whole, creepiness of the twins.
Okay.
If you look at it, come Danny, come play with us.
So is that not in the book? Are they twins not in the book?
They're not twins. They're sisters being
they're
murdered.
Just sisters. Okay.
Yeah, but that's the conscious choice, and the whole interior of that hotel is actually made in a studio.
Okay.
So, and everything you see is the production design with Stanley Kubrick is all about symmetry, patterns, and everything to gives the single vanishing point, which is the signature style of Stanley Kubrick.
I think they filmed it. I'm just checking. I think because he hated traveling. I think they filmed it in Pine Tree Studios.
Yeah. So all the internal in that hotel, you see the cycling and the tricycle and typing and here's Johnny, the whole panning Everything there you see, all been shot in a studio. Everything was made from scratch, the production design, and it was made there. But again, The Shining is another example how he builds up.
Oh, I just checked. It's Elstree Studios where he filmed it. Yeah. But then the exterior shots are all in Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the interior is all there, and it's slowly build up how this, the cabin fever, even though they're
because they're in the middle of nowhere, and then they got the snow, and they can't go anywhere because they're snowed. Yeah, and you're right, and it's like this cabin fever, and also it's there's that very scary scene where he's trying to write. And he's just been writing pages and pages, and it's like he's typing. It's like, oh, what's he typing? His mom, and he says, "All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy." So
it is very scary. So again, The Shining and The Exorcist are funny. They always come at top 5 scariest movie of all time.
Yeah.
Even though me personally, I wouldn't call it horror, but it is still horror. It's a psychological horror.
Yeah.
Which is make you that he's gone so crazy and taken over by that bad omen of that place. Now he's going to murder his family. Almost that schizophrenic approach that has been taken over. And now
what did you think
Johnny.
What did
There's
you think?
another cultural reference
that scene, didn't he?
Sorry?
He improvised that scene.
Who? Jack Nicholson?
Yeah, because in America at the time, there's a talk show called Johnny Carson. So it was a talk show host, and it used to always open up going, "Here's Johnny."
Oh, yeah. You mean that line, But the whole using the axe and the head coming out, that was whole Stanley Kubrick. And it's funny that how there's big behind the scene picture of Stanley Kubrick actually stood behind the camera himself, panning, doing the whole panning, quick panning with the movement of the axe going back and forth with Jack Nicholson.
Okay.
So he himself is behind the camera and moving the camera with the
axe.
Strokes of the axe. So that was another. Thanks for reminding me, because it would be rude to not mention The Shining and the Halloween special. So
what did you think of the son? The son, he's got special powers.
Oh, he explains that the Shining is the power that he's out. That because that the elderly black gentleman explained it to it.
Because he's got it as well. So they have this kind of sixth sense, don't they?
Yeah, telepathy. They
connect. That's it. They can tell the future, sort of.
Yeah. So as I said, I watched Doctor Strange came out. This is many years, 30 years later. That Ewan McGregor played Danny, and now he's grown up. But somehow he has to go. But I don't want to give away too much. But they follow up on the Shining power, that that gift.
Oh, okay.
And they follow it up, but it has become more commercials.
Yeah, you can't. I can imagine.
Rebecca Ferguson is in it. I don't know if you know Rebecca Ferguson.
Yes, loosely.
She's Swedish. Is she English actor, or she's Scandinavian? Anyway. She's in it as well. So she's actually the baddie, the villain.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I wouldn't want to watch it for some reason. I'm just too much of a big fan of the original, I think.
When you watch it, don't compare it with the first one, because you're gonna,
be disappointed.
But look at it as a film on its own. Okay. With the background information of the original Shining. It's a backstory for Danny. Okay. So enough, but it's entertaining enough to watch one, easy watching kind of a horror.
Do your best impression, Odie, of the boy saying murder backwards.
Oh, Radra.
He's going, Red Ram.
Radra. Not a big impression, but Red Ram, So, and that was a big thing, because in the mirror you can see what it means.
Because the first time I saw it, I was like, what the hell is he talking about? He goes up to the mum, he's going, Red Ram, Red Ram. And it's like, what? And then she looks in the mirror, and then she sees it says murder, because he's obviously the mirror. He's seeing it backwards. And it's like, Oh, was that the point where he killed the elderly black man, that he just knew that was happening and he wrote that on the mirror?
I think so. Or he had some kind of a flashback seeing it, or
Oh, okay.
he's get these visions he has, or
Yeah.
sees like the elderly woman in that shower. The mother
Oh,
doesn't see
yeah,
it.
the woman in the bath.
Yeah. So that's when the elderly gentleman said, "This is what you have as a gift." It's called The Shining.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
yeah,
remember at the beginning.
and the movie The Shining. But Stephen King just said, because lots of Stephen King stuff is gone towards in 80s was made, and I'm not a big fan of 80s. I like um, The Thing.
Yeah, I was
But
this is one of my favorite creature films. This was the last episode. No, not the last episode. I talked to Tom, and we did an episode on creature films.
John
And
Carpenter, yeah, The
the
Thing, yeah.
thing, yeah, the thing's amazing. The John Carpenter one.
Yeah. So I'm not. That's my taste. I'm not a big fan of those genre of
Okay,
horror,
80s.
but John Carpenter or Sam Raimi, Evil Dead. There are different genre of horror, and there are big
Yeah.
out
Did
there, and I
you?
appreciate it. And it's we have to mention John Carpenter and Sam Raimi
Of
for
course.
a movie they made, and although it's not my kind of a preferred genre of horror, but it's still they're good films, they're horror, and it's worth watching. And yeah, the thing and that approach to it, the whole started the whole new genre of how alien forms takes over. And again, um, that was one of the film I remember from 80s.
Yeah,
Thing.
as a microscopic. Yeah, we talked about it with Tom. No, it's a really good film. It's a remake
Yeah.
of an old 50s film,
So,
I think he bought.
but I am definitely something that is on my next to do, right? Because as I told you, I don't know, maybe we should continue briefly this talk after the podcast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm going away, but this is my next to do agenda is writing this horror film, the story I'm working on called Vessel.
Okay.
But we have a quick chat about the other short film when I come back.
Okay.
So if we get the chance, we can make it. And it's about
Yeah,
the
no,
couple.
that'd be awesome. I was going to tell you, because we were talking about horror films. When I was 25, I worked on one.
Oh, good.
Yeah, not as one of the cast members. Basically, what happened was, this is quite a good story for film lovers as well, because it was so my friends at the time, him and his girlfriend, they run a production company that's still going on, and they were doing a low budget horror film, and it was filmed in London actually. And what happened was the wardrobe person just stopped answering her phone and never called back or anything. So they desperately needed someone to fill her space. And I said, if I was ever free, I'd like to help out. And they called me and they said, we really need your help. So basically what I had to do was I had to call all the actors up and ask them for their dress sizes and measurements. And one of them was Stephen Gately from Boyzone. I don't know if you know him. He died.
Okay. I'm not big. I don't know the names, but I'm good
Yeah,
with the faces. So I'm
there
sure
were
when
a
I
few
Google it, I'll
famous
see it.
ones, but no big names. But it was
No,
quite.
I'm sure if I see the face, then I
Yeah,
can.
you probably would. He was in a famous boy band. But anyway, so I was in charge of basically calling all the actors up, talking to them all, finding out all their dress sizes, and then I had to go out and get all these clothes that the producer gave me money to, and get them clothes. But because it's a horror film and it wasn't done in sequence, I had to get several replicas of the same clothes. So some of the clothes are like nice and clean, and then the other ones I'm throwing lots of fake blood, and it was just like it was really good fun actually. I really enjoyed it. Just like making horror films is so much fun. Everyone thinks it is, it isn't, but it's hard work. But then also it's so much fun because you get to mess everything up, and the art. And I was also helping out the woman who was in charge of the art design. So I was like messing up the rooms and stuff, putting fake blood everywhere. But it was really good fun making a horror film.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was hard work though, because they had 3 weeks. The first 2 weeks were daytime shoots, and then the third and then the third week was all nighttime shoots. So, but I was only helping out here and there. I didn't do the whole lot. But I remember when it came to the third week of night shoots, so they were starting. They had to be on set by, I think it was by 9 o'clock, going through all the way through to 6 o'clock in the morning. And and that's very common for night shoots, or much later. But apparently none of the crew knew, so none of the camera crew knew, and apparently several of them marched off and refused to do it. So the producer was really stressed out, and another actor, who I won't say his name, basically came into England without a work visa, and he's from another country. I won't say what.
Okay.
So he never thought to look into getting a work visa to work on the film, and she had to go to the embassy, and this was more stress for her, and sort it out, and literally get it 2 days before they were about to start shooting the horror film. But yeah, there's all kinds of stories that go on between people that work behind the scenes of a horror film. Or any film, anything, there's all kinds of drama that goes on.
It is drama.
Did you ever see the film, because we were talking about Stephen King, did you ever see the film Carrie?
I have seen Carrie, original one, and then they did a remake. I'm not a big fan of gore and those,
No.
I watch them, but it's not my type of film that, you splash lots of.
You know what makes me feel so bad is that, for a lot of people, and I've seen this in one of the film shows, for a lot of people going to school is like, you're learning how you're growing up, aren't you? And so you're going to have bad experiences and going to have good experiences. But for a lot of people in high school, especially, you get the ones that are really picked on. And for that one, Carrie, I actually felt very empathetic towards, until she went crazy, because she's very telepathic, isn't she? And then at the end, because they play that awful, awful trick on her in the prom night, where one of the girls and a guy basically spills blood pig over her, and that's when she goes crazy and starts killing everyone. But then up to that point, we kind of sympathize with her. But then you think, actually, these people have been really nasty to her. I'm kind of glad she killed them. Do you know what I mean?
Another thing, that's another thing that which I just mentioned earlier on with Get Out and US. If you use this nice social kind of a background to your story, it makes it more believable, because in high school there are lots of mean kids, and they're being mean to each other, or in the Get Out movie, the racism happening, and if you use that as a background to your story, it becomes more believable, and it gets the audience on a journey to feel for that character, why she suddenly gone dark, because she was put in that position, she was put into society and community, and then suddenly happens that she has that power, and then takes it in advantage, and then she goes crazy. So that's what you say. That's why it makes it lots of people feel about the Carrie.
Well, I think because, like you said, we've all had an experience like that when we were in school, where at one point we felt like we were maybe picked on or bullied on, and you think it wasn't nice, but you grew up eventually. But you think for people like her, I mean, it was really awful, and you think, actually, you know what, like, there were only one or two people that were really nice to her. I'm kind of glad, and you can kind of see that from the child perspective of, like, the younger you. You can kind of think, actually, no, they kind of deserve it. Do you know what I mean? You kind, because they've been so awful to her that, and her mum's absolutely crazy. Her mum's that.
Exactly.
I pray you find Jesus and all this kind of.
There's another type that the religious people, especially people are from coming very conservative, and they become the superstitions religious gets mixed up, and the common sense goes out from the other door. While you were talking, there are a couple of other movie I'm going to mention. because it would be rude not to. And these are my favorites from 80s, and I still got the DVD for them. There's one, David Cronenberg's The Scanner. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Scanner.
Oh, no. Hang on a minute. I'm going to stop there quickly. I'll tell you what, I need to go to the toilet again. Do you want to go to the toilet or anything?
Sure, no problem.
Hang on. No, I'm really enjoying it. I just need to go to the toilet.
No, of course, please. Of course.
It's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, sorry, we got back from another break. So, what were you saying, OD? You were talking about your favorite horror films from the 80s. You're going to say 2.
Yeah, so I have my DVDs, and I thought I kind of because as you mentioned, we're having too much fun talking about it, so kind of going towards bringing it to the end and wrap it up. But I have to mention David Cronenberg of The Scanner.
Okay.
It's a very good film.
Tell us about The Scanner.
The Scanners is about, when you talked about telepathy, it's about this new generation of people for some kind of a experiment has gone wrong, and now they have the telepathy to read people's mind and also influence what they do and their action. And it has a very famous scene because there is this guy who supposedly has this power is doing some kind of a demonstration in some kind of a amphitheater, some meeting room in some university, and there are lots of members of public is invited, and then he asks some random person to come sit down. That random person is Michael Ironside, by the way.
Okay.
When he's young. And then they start reading each other's mind, etc. And then the host wasn't aware, we are not aware of that apparently Michael Ironside himself is a scanner. So the host start having a problem, and you see his faces start getting distorted, etc. And then suddenly, after this dramatic a few minutes, suddenly the head of the host explodes.
Oh God! Okay.
Yeah, that's how you get introduced to the character of Michael Ironside, which he's the very strong scanner.
Okay.
And that the story of becomes about him and his younger brother, who is a scanner, so he's been recruited by a company to try to capitalize off this situation, and the brother is he's not aware of it. The younger brother, who's a stronger scanner, goes get kind of attracted by the underground of kind of a movement of these scanners. They're trying to resist the takeover of the corporation and government, etc. But it's a very good film, David Cronenberg, The Scanner. The other one I want to quickly mention is The Howling, again in 80s.
Was that the one with a bunch of werewolves in the building?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about. I loosely know about it, but.
So The Howling is about the story follows the anchor woman who is got he's getting kind of under lots of psychological pressure, etc. And he's seeing a doctor, and at this episode that is happening to her, she is referred to go to by her psychologist to go some remote kind of a place to relax and
it's a hotel or something, isn't it?
Yeah, some cabin in some kind of a commune somewhere.
Yeah, just to relax.
So she ends up going with the husband there, not knowing that actually the whole people in that community they are werewolves.
I heard about this.
Yeah, including
I saw clips of it.
Including the psychologist.
But really?
Yeah, but the thing is how it's approached at the beginning and how she get to that level is that she comes, she's been kind of followed and stalked by a guy who is kind of in the city. That person is one of these werewolves. But anyhow, and then her husband kind of becomes a werewolf because her husband ends up sleeping with one of these female werewolves. Sexually seduced. Anyhow, so that's one of the good films what I remember from my childhood, the 80s, The Howling. And the other one I want to mention, because we're talking about the werewolves, it would be rude to not mention the werewolf, the American Werewolf in London by John Landis.
Yeah, this is another one. I mean, Tom
Yeah,
talked about in the creature movie. Yeah, go on then. Let's talk about that a bit more. I mean, we did a bit of
yeah,
Tom, but
yeah. So this is again the story. The storyline is simple. Two American tourists come to the UK to and then under one of the hiking trip
exhibition.
somewhere in the countryside, they get attacked by one of them is get killed, and the other one is who survives becomes they end up he end up in a hospital in London, some kind of establish some kind of romantic relationship with the nurse, but and then he gets signed off from the hospital. But one of the famous scene from this is when he, for the first time, he start morphing to becoming a fully werewolf, becoming from a human form to become a wolf.
Oh,
And
it's
that
that
scene,
awful scene in the living room, isn't it? With the
yeah,
lights
exactly.
on.
That everything was done, the makeup properly done.
Oh no, I know. I saw that. Me and Tom were
It's
talking
not
about it.
CGI, good
Oh, I
old
know.
proper. And that scene I want to get to this point because it's Halloween, and to this point that scene was the scene that when Michael Jackson watched that, Michael Jackson specifically said, "I want to hire John Landis, the director, to make my long
Thriller.
thriller, which is at the time was almost like a mini film, half an hour
Yeah, yeah,
thriller."
yeah.
Which now is Halloween. I thought kind of bring it to the end of our session with
Well,
bringing
yeah,
John
that's good.
Landis and then the Michael Jackson thriller, which is again one of the film when I watched, as I explained earlier to you, because I was exposed, I was allowed to watch lots of horror film, even though I was scared of it. When that thriller was released and I watched, I was scared, but that that thriller has the at the end has a kind of addition to it when the ending titles coming up, etc., that it shows the behind the scene, the makeup team, Stan Winston, if I'm not
Mm.
mistaken, that they creating that kind of a feline is something between the American lynx, the
Yeah,
tomcat and the lion. It's not a werewolf, but anyway, that kind of that they put makeup on face of Michael Jackson and the whisk starts growing, or then later on the whole zombie thing. So when I watched that, my dad was then he explained to me, he said, "You see, all these horror film you were watching, this is the process that make these people scary or make them to a
yeah,
werewolf or becoming zombie." So, and I think I needed to mention both these three, and coming to Thriller, Michael Jackson, because every Halloween everyone plays Thriller, everyone do the dance,
yeah. And also,
you know.
Thriller's very clever because that. And oh, I've got to say one more film because we're talking about that Thriller. So Thriller's very good because it references a lot of horror films itself, even though it's a
Oh
music
yeah,
video. Because it references like the old like vampire films, not the vampire, but the old werewolf films. Like he's
yeah,
watching a
50
film.
zombies, and yeah, because Michael Jackson watched that movie, the American Werewolf in London, and he said, "I want to make that
Yeah,
film," and that was a stroke of genius because John Landis used all the cinematic power he had to creating it film within the film because he goes take the girl on a date to inside,
that's it. And they go watch a werewolf film.
and then in cinema they're watching Michael Jackson himself becoming a werewolf in the film, and then they leave, and as they leave, becomes the Thriller music video and the zombie dance and the one of the famous, now it's
Nursery
synonymous.
scene.
As soon as you say Halloween, the music Thriller comes up and everyone does the zombie dance.
Yeah. So, because I feel bad if I don't mention that, I'll do one more, and because it comes to a
Please.
good point. So you were talking because we just said literally how Thriller's actually because yeah, it is a film. It was a film, and it was very expensive as well, wasn't it, when it got made?
Short film format, and you got the John Landis and the director, and Stan Winston, one of the top 2-3 names when it comes to makeup and CGI old
Yeah.
school. Stan Winston, yeah.
So I was saying that, like, because I just said that Thriller references like like horror films in a way in a genre because he in the in the film he goes to the cinema with his girlfriend to watch a werewolf film. So he's kind of sort of referencing that. And then that brought me on to the thing Scream, because Scream's amazing, because that's actually a film about the audience, and that's not just its own film, it's referencing all kinds of horror genres. Do you know what I mean? It references Psycho, it references, and there's all these rules that apply in order to survive. And if you're not a horror film genre audience fan in the film, there's no way you're going to survive this scary guy. So that was a really clever film, actually. And then obviously they made all these really stupid sequels. But then the first one was really clever because he's actually talking about the audience, isn't he? And he's like, the only way they can survive in the film is if they know how to survive a horror film. So there's all these references to like Psycho and Halloween, like Halloween being the babysitter has to be a virgin, otherwise she'll be killed off, and you know, all these scenes. It's really clever. I mean, what did you think about Scream? I found it really scary the first time I saw it.
I didn't, because by that time I was literally a veteran watching horror films. So
okay.
It was me. I wouldn't really get that. You know, for me, it had to be a very specific type of genre, psychological, to get it. One thing I can, just because you're an actress and you're to act in, have to refer to it, that the Scream was Drew Barrymore establishes her acting career as an adult, because remember she started acting from age of 4 in E.T. So although she had a very open, but you know, she made that sequence for herself. You know, even though she got killed at the beginning, but
that brings me on to another point, because that's good that you said that, because that in a way is referencing Psycho, because at the time Psycho, Janet Leigh? She was a very, very big star, and you think, oh, she's the main lead in this, and they kill her off 20 minutes into the film.
Exactly. So it was the homage.
Yeah, exactly, because Drew Barrymore was a very big star, and she got killed off.
Killed in the same style with the knife, and although that silly mask of the screen.
Scene. Yeah,
exactly. So it was a proper homage to Alfred Hitchcock and Psycho.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very clever, that film. But we could go on and on for ages, couldn't we? But I think we better finish.
I really enjoyed talking to you once again.
You too. Come back and do some more. And I think we should finish off by doing one more impression.
Of which one?
I don't know. What do you want to do? You do the evil laugh. I think the evil laugh.
Evil laugh. I don't know if my evil laugh is good, but I'll give it a go.
Go on.
I'm not a shy person.
What is better?
Yeah. It sounds comedy.
I'm really laughing. Sorry.
It's okay. As I said, it's comedy, not horror.
I'll try. Oh, ha, 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 ha. I can't do it. It's really hard. And do one more wolf impression. Hang on. Okay, I'll do mine and then you do yours and we'll finish. Okay. Ready?
Oh, this one I think I went better than laughing.
Yeah, that was much better. All right. So we'll finish there, OD. Thank you for joining us for the Halloween special.
Thank you very much for your time. I always enjoy it. As I said, I'll get my female friend producer, send it your link. Hopefully you guys have something to talk about. And
yeah, that'd be great.
I'm going to continue listening to your podcast and your new guests every week. Thank you very much and happy Halloween, everyone.
Thank you. Happy Halloween.